There he is.
Yeah.
We the North.
We the North.
Had to represent, you know.
Repping. Gotta rep.
Who's letting them? I guess Jeremy's letting people in. Is that who's letting people in, Jeremy? Yeah. So we let them in what at 10:15, I guess, right?
As soon as Kirk
Yeah.
give us the green light, and we can
1 second here.
take your time.
You can hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. I'm ready when you are.
Right. Into the musical style, and yep.
You want people in?
All good over here.
I ain't got no money. I ain't got no car to take you on a date. I can't even buy you flowers, but together we can be the perfect soulmates. Talk to me, girl.
Baby, it's alright now, you ain't got a flaw for me. If we gotta touch, you can still touch my love, it's free. We can work without the birds, just you and me. Work it out till we get it right. Baby, if you're struck, you can get it together, like it just the way you want.
I'm about to stroke and I'm gonna quick and you handle me the way
I don't need a tease or a card, keep for you, like it just the way you want.
let me see you stroke, you can get it together like that. I ain't got no visa. I ain't got no red American Express. We can't go nowhere exotic. It don't matter, cause I'm the one that loves you best. Talk to me, girl.
Baby, it's alright now, you ain't got a flaw for me. If we gotta touch, you can still touch my love, it's free. We can work without the books, just you and me. Work it out till we get it right. Baby, if it's true, you can get it together, like it just the way you want.
I'm about to stroke and I'm gonna quick and you handle me the way.
I don't need a tease or a card, keep for you, like it just the way you want.
Let me see you stroke, you can get it together like it just the way.
Baby girl, I don't got a huge old house, I rent a room in the house. Listen, baby girl, I ain't got a motorboat, but I can float your boat. So listen, baby girl, once you get a dose of dough, you gon' want some more. So listen, baby girl, when the beat get up, want you
That ice cold Michelle fight for that white gold. This one for them hood girls, them good
Go, Kirk.
Yeah.
Living it up in the city.
Hi, Caroline.
Oh, with Saint Laurent, gotta kiss myself. I'm so pretty.
Hi, Helen.
You're the police and the fireman. I'm too
Hi, Oren.
Make a dragon wanna retire, man. I'm too hot.
Hi, Sharon. Hi, Tosin.
Hi, Bruce. Hi, Tosin.
Morning. Morning.
You. Morning, everybody.
Girl, sit you hallelujah. Girl, sit you hallelujah.
Morning.
Uptown Funk don't give it to you. 'Cause Uptown Funk don't give it to you. 'Cause Uptown
Big man Kirk in the house.
Just watch.
Let no one say finance people can't have fun, eh? Right, Bruce?
Exactly. You see that?
Just watch. Hey, hey, hey.
There's Stu getting excited.
Oh, my cup, put some nigga in it. Take a sip, sign the check. Julio, get the stretch. Right to Harlem, Hollywood, Jackson, Mississippi.
We should all be standing, can't?
Anisha, use the background. Do you have a background, Anisha? Let's finish the background.
I am in too hot. Make a dragon wanna retire.
Tell it again.
I need to send you the virtual background.
How do, okay, and then just walk me
I'll
through how
put
to
it
put
to
it on.
you.
That money, break it down. Girls,
Is the logo looking, correct on my background?
hallelujah.
It looks good.
Yes,
It
Carol.
is
Yes, Caroline, you're looking. Yeah, you're good.
Yeah,
You're good.
Caroline,
Morning.
hi.
How are you?
Thanks for cleaning early.
I've been up since because I have teams in the Philippines. There's a typhoon, so I've been working through the night.
Okay.
Yeah, half of them have no power, we have 24-hour support. I've been up for hours. And as soon as I get off here, I have a Diwali party, so I have my sari bag right next to me.
All right. Sounds exciting.
What you gonna do? Do you wanna get out? What you gonna do? You wanna get out? What you gonna do? You wanna get out? Tell me.
Anisha, check your mail. I've sent you the virtual background.
Denise, I'm gonna call you.
How you gonna do it if you really don't wanna dance? By standing on the wall. Get your back up off the wall. Tell me. How you gonna do it if you really don't wanna dance? By standing on the wall. Get your back up off the wall. I heard all the people saying, get down on it. Come on and get down on it. If you really want
Hey, Antoine.
get down on it.
Tell me, have you ever seen an accounting event like this? Hey, this is the way to kick 10 to 2020, right? Hey?
What you gonna do? You gotta get on the groove. If they want your body to move,
Go Kirk.
tell me, baby.
Yes, I just sent you the background.
Really don't
Sorry.
Hey, Christine.
standing on the wall. Get your back up on the wall. Tell me,
I have a Christine.
Yeah.
chance by standing on the wall. Get your back up. Let's start living dangerously.
Talk to me, baby. I'm going back to music, baby. Let's lose our minds and go crazy, crazy.
Keep on hoping we'll be cake by the ocean.
Walk for me, baby. I'll be baby, you'll be Naomi. Let's lose our minds and
Hey,
go
Steve.
crazy.
Keep on hoping we'll be cake.
Hey, Shalua.
Oh no. See
Hey, Steve.
it's a funeral.
The accounting event of 2020.
Hey, Bruce,
This is it.
We just getting started, don't you
Great job, Bruce. You're so proud. This is good. You're doing a great thing.
Well, it's a great team effort here. It was a great team effort.
Bruce, you need to check Christine's chat.
Okay, let me check. Yeah.
getting started, don't you tiptoe, tiptoe.
Hi, Shalewa.
Waste time with the masterpiece. To waste time with the masterpiece. You should be me. You should be me. You're a real life fantasy. You're a real life fantasy. But you're moving so carefully. Let's start living dangerously.
Talk to me, baby. I'm going up from here since we played the home. Let's move around and go crazy, crazy. Talk to me, baby. I'm going up from here since we played the home. Let's move around and go crazy, crazy. Walk for me, baby. I'll be Betty, you'll be Naomi. Let's move around and go crazy, crazy.
Give me quick a special request. I'm gonna throw in a special request by who's a guy like Calvin Harris. Calvin Harris.
You know I got that Calvin Harris for you.
That's my favorite. I love Blast It. Blast It.
Hit the jackpot, rev me up, my little buttercup. We can tuck sheets, snuggle up and get stuck. Believe it or not, here comes a brother with a glow. I'm snuggling, bubbling, and overweight, loving, hungry pro. So what's it gonna be? Me or the TV? Let me take time to set your mind and your body free. So won't you just stretch for a sec. Lay round the bottom so I can cop a quick whack. Shake me, baby, bake me. No need to fake, here I am, come on and take me. Wind your body, baby, move your body. I see you slip sliding, come on and do it, Heidi. I'm not quite sure as to what is going down, but I'm feeling hunky dory about the scene where I'm
You. Who's got it going?
but not like this. We can toss and turn, rumble, tumble, and twist. Anything you wanna get it. Fantasy will live it so let out. Lady, love my baby girl. Spread your wings so we can fly around the world. Harmony, charmony, your fingertips are calling me. When you drop
Well, the participants are coming in like crazy now.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, they're coming in.
One of my favorites.
All right.
Four corners. I feel so close to you right now. It's the force field.
This is Bruce's fit. All right.
One of my favorites.
I wear my heart up on my sleeve like a big deal. Your love pours down on me, surround me like a waterfall.
When we go, what do? We go big, right?
No stopping us.
We go big.
Right
No small,
on.
we go big.
Right on. We have Kirk Four Corners since are in the house. Come on, you go big.
From the Toronto
Or go
Raptors. You go big or go home. Tiffany. That's it. Hey, look at Nico. Today, the counting event of 2020. And we're accounting. Remember that.
I wear my heart up on my sleeve like a big deal. Your love pours down on me, surround me like a waterfall. And there's no stopping us right now. I feel so close to you right now.
Hey, Joe. Jesse. Katya, good morning. Hey, Carl.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hey, Carl. Good morning. Is this an event or what? Hi, Garnett. Hi, Garnett. Hi, Roshan. Start in a couple of minutes. Yep. Thanks, Diane. Start in 1 minute. And Kurt will be back. Okay, we're going to start in momentarily. Kurt, load music, yeah. Start. Thank you. Man, that was amazing. Kirk, this is fantastic to start a day here. Fantastic, very excited. Welcome everybody to today's, and I'll use the word blockbuster event. If this isn't the event for accounting and finance for 2020, nothing is. So we're very excited. We got a great cast. It's an unbelievable event. And momentarily, I'm just going to hand it to Hugh. And I just welcome everybody. We've done great lengths. So I'm going to hand it over to Hugh as we kickstart the event. And Hugh, you take it away.
Hey, thank you, Bruce. It's really an amazing morning. Let me just take the opportunity to give a big shout out to Kurt Four Corners and sorry, hey, the DJ's in the house. Thank you. Thank you. And most importantly, I really want to thank my co-host, Bruce Singer, who is in the house, and at least he's still sitting in the couch with all that great music from Kirk. Yeah, he wasn't levitating. So really to kickstart, let me first of all just say a big welcome. Welcome to each and everyone. A big shout out to our team. I want to give a shout out to Christina, working in the background, creating the magic. Tosin, give her a big shout out. And where's Denisha? Is Denisha in the house? Yeah? Yep. Sharon, and of course, Bruce. Thank you all. And to our amazing supporters, I really want to thank you for being on. And, you know, when you have amazing team and a championship DJ in the house, you know, what else can you ask for? An amazing participant. So I have the privilege of co-hosting with Bruce, you know, the CEO of Canada CFOs Inc. And really it's an honor and a pleasure to welcome you to the Leadership and Change in Accounting and Finance EDI event 2020. So I just want to ask the participants, the community members who are here, those who are coming in, we ask that you remain muted and respectful, you know, for speakers as we go through the event. And excitingly, we ask that, you know, keep the excitement going in the chat room, and we will definitely be happy to facilitate taking your questions there. The next thing I really want to give a shout out, we're honored to have Toronto Sign Language Interpreter Service, TSLIS, for this event. A big welcome and thanks to TSLIS President Christopher Desloges for the support for event. So just to put a quick overview on the event, to share with you is that we will begin with our first in the series of Dialogues in Diversity with Transformation and Belonging session, followed by our Leadership and Change panel, and then leading with our concurrent Voices in Action and the first in the series of our fireside chat. And after which we'll have our second Dialogues in Diversity, and that will be with CPA Canada, following our closing fireside chat with our thought leaders from the Indigenous community and our closing remark. So where we're gonna kickstart momentarily is I will have the honor to welcome you to our Dialogues in Diversity and Transformation session. And that session will really kickstart. It's on transformation and belonging. And what's exciting is Bruce Singer is gonna take us through that session with our first thought leader of the event. So I'm excited to share that. And Bruce, are we ready to rumble?
We're ready to rock and roll. Yeah, rock and roll.
All right.
Antoine is here in the house.
All right. So
Okay.
yeah, so it's I'm honored, Bruce, to
Thank you.
turn it over to you.
So our session is in a series, Dialogues on Diversity. We welcome from Ernst & Young, Antoine, who's going to cover off this subject. Antoine, you're here in the house.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be with you today, guys.
Fabulous. Just to talk about Antoine Majumba. He's EY. He's in charge of EY Canada's corporate culture on leadership and diversity and inclusiveness and belonging. He's the lead. He has over 50 years of experience, deep expertise in helping organizations with culture transformation, leadership training, diversity and inclusion, change management. Antoine is also the executive sponsor for the EY Black Professional Network, where he works with the group to support EY employees and enable better EY strategy initiatives, imperatives. Okay, so Antoine, welcome aboard.
Hi, Bruce. Hi, team. It's really exciting to be with you today. And yes, these first 25 minutes just pump me up. I'm ready.
Okay, especially if they have music. Okay, so what are the challenges? What are the challenges that BIPOC professionals experience in finance leadership?
Well, that's a great question. And I would say these are similar challenges that the Black community is facing each time that you're trying to go into a different path, I would say. Most of the consulting and finance firms or boutique firms are not necessarily targeting the less branded, I would say, institutions or colleges and universities. And I think it's a lack of awareness. And what's happening is the Black community doesn't have really awareness on what's happening in the wealth management or finance or accounting, and they don't necessarily think about these career paths. So I think that's one of the first problems. Entering the profession is the first challenge. And then I would say across the board, I would say in all these in that industry, if you look at the numbers in terms of representation, I think it's hard once again due to, we can call it lack of understanding, lack of education, or sometimes racism. Individuals won't have access to the same opportunities in terms of growth, opportunities to have access to challenging opportunities. And recently, I think it was last year, Korn Ferry did issue a very interesting article on specifically in wealth management, how it was difficult. And what is interesting in wealth management, it's really data-driven type of profession. So it was interesting to see that numbers are systematically telling you how good these Black professionals are and how limited they have access career opportunities. So I would say it's kind of the similar trend that we see across industries. First, kids won't have access because of the lack of awareness, or these big brands, consulting and financial services won't target schools, or will target systematically the same schools instead of broadening their perspective and their pool of talent. So I would say, in a nutshell, that's what I'm saying. What I hope is, just to expand a little bit on that, is with what's happening south of the border and seeing Kamala Harris, first VP elect, it's going to be interesting to see the boost that kids will see in terms of yes, I can do it. Now I have access to these top opportunities.
Thanks, Antoine. Just so what is EY doing to support the advancement of BIPOC individuals in the workforce?
So it's here again, a very interesting question, and actually we're really in the very heart of it. So we do a lot of things. The first thing that we are a consulting firm, so we're like data, and we're data driven. So we measure our progress year over year through global people survey, retention, partner promotion, rating differentials, headcounts, and more specifically what we call our top 360 G360 account, to see how many hours our Black professional have access to these accounts that are usually accounts where you have big opportunities to showcase how good you are and to progress within the organization. So really looking at who we are and having a data-driven approach is something that is absolutely critical. What we also have is we track progress and set goals through our global D&I leadership team survey and America's Inclusiveness Advisory Council. So what do we have is we have systems in place to make sure that we are looking at who we are and how our Black community or Black professionals are progressing within the organization. Here again, being consultant, we love data, and we love to look at data to be able to make informed decision. But what we also have is we have a set of groups. So for instance, we can call them affinity networks or employee resource groups. And we have more than 12 of them, one of them being the Black Professional Network. And I've been the lead, and I'm now one of the executive sponsors. And the idea here again is to make sure that we have a platform to listen to our Black professionals, to try to understand what they're experiencing, and bringing up to the leadership team, here again, more data, qualitative and quantitative, to make sure that we do understand what's happening and we do understand what we need to work on.
Thank you.
What we also have is everything that is around leadership awareness and training. So all our newly promoted managers or senior managers will go through a specific training around anti-racism or unconscious bias, just to make sure, because they're going to be in position to lead people, lead individuals, just to make sure that they are properly equipped to really understand what is unconscious bias and what is racism or anti-racism. Finally, we also have what we call firm level assessment and evolution. Here again, it's through surveys that were conducted on a yearly basis. We're collecting data to try to understand what's happening within the organization across levels, to make sure that we have a pretty accurate picture of what's happening within the organization, what are the opportunities, and what can we do better. Currently, we are evaluating all our internal processes from hire to retire through the lens of D&I, through the lens of inclusivity, through the lens of Black Professional Network, to really understand what can be done differently. And really, I had access recently to some of the results, because the Black Professional Network is also looped in these initiatives to make sure that we understand, we have some data, and at the same time, we can see how we can better support the firm to be better on that diversity and inclusion journey.
Go on. So you have a lot of initiatives going on at E&Y. Is E&Y, or what is E&Y doing to expand those initiatives to the broad corporate Canada? Is there anything going on there that you can share?
No, absolutely. So I think there's a lot of things. Actually, for instance, we like to engage before going to the corporate Canada. We also like to give back to the community, and we have some vehicles. One that we are calling EY Ripples, that is really highlighting pro bono opportunities. And we're targeting also our organization led by Black individuals, Black professionals, and making sure that we'll also have an opportunity to the broader population, not only the Black professional within EY, but the broader population within EY, to have opportunity to give back to the community and the Black community. We are also through Black North, the Business Council of Canada, and the Canadian Council of Business Leaders Against Anti-Black Systemic Racism. Our CEO, that is, and Chairman Jad Shimali, who is also our Chief Inclusiveness Officer, did commit and sign some letters and pledge to make sure that we want to demonstrate, and we're committing ourselves to be better at what we're doing from an inclusiveness perspective. To go back to your initial question around, okay, what do we do to support corporate Canada? Well, we do two things. The first one is we are more than happy on a regular basis to just share what we're doing. So explaining to the big brands in financial services or across industries, really we're helping them understand what we've been doing, because we've been on that journey for about 25 years now, and we have acquired a lot of experience. We know what we missed and what we could be better at. So we share our story. What we also do is based on that 25 years of experience and our experience at helping organizations navigate through large transformation, we've developed a service offering around culture, diversity, inclusion, and what we call transformative leadership. That is the summary or condensed way, I would say, of everything that we've learned internally and everything that we've learned helping organizations transform themselves. And we put together a service offering that is now pretty active. Because, as you can imagine, with everything that is happening in the society, diversity and inclusion is a very hot topic. So we have a service offering to really help our client in a more systematic manner using all the various tools and methodology that we've developed and built over the years, specifically with us using some specific frameworks to be better at what we're doing from a diversity and inclusion perspective.
Okay, so we have a lot of accounting professionals. I always use the word, everybody's got to get involved. You know what I mean? Everybody's got to get with the I use the word, tell Hugh, everybody's got to get with the program. All right. So what are so if we to share some key takeaways to the audience today, what would be some simple takeaways that everybody can do their part? That's what I guess that's why people are here. They want to help. They're interested. They want to learn. They want to help. And what are some of the key things that you could suggest that takeaway that somebody can do to get involved?
Here again, that's a very good question. I think there's a few things. First one is educate yourself. And you go on internet and there's tons of very good articles or papers that have been written around racism or diversity and inclusion. So that's what I would do. Educate, because quite often there is a lack of awareness and lack of education. Really understand what it means. There are some really interesting documentaries also on Netflix to really understand what do we mean by systemic racism. Because you don't have to be racist to act racist. So I think that's something that is very important. Educate yourself, and silence is not an option. I think that when we talk about bullying, for instance, we often talk about the victim, the aggressor, but also about the bystander. So don't be a bystander. Educate yourself and understand what it means. That's kind of something that we can start doing tomorrow. The other thing that the organization could think about is take a data-driven approach. Open the hood, really understand who you are, and have the courage to really look at the mirror and try to understand who you are exactly. Because quite often we don't have any problems. We don't have any issues here. Well, you don't know what you don't know. So the idea of opening the hood, really looking at everything from all the HR processes and protocols from hire to retire, understand where are the potential challenges, surveying your population to really understand what is experiencing your Black community, and be honest and as I said, you're going to need to demonstrate courage to really understand what's happening. So have a data-driven approach. Start doing something that you can do on Monday by educating yourself, and be willing to listen some stories that are not necessarily nice stories.
Thank you, Antoine.
Thanks a lot, Bruce.
Any last minute comments that you want to make before we go to some little bit of a break and then some entertainment? You know what I mean?
No, thanks a lot. I think these kind of events are absolutely great because it's an opportunity to voice our opinion, to voice who we are as a Black community, and really understand what's happening on the ground. So I think, unfortunately or fortunately, because of what's happening south of the border, because of the pandemic, because of George Floyd, organizations are becoming more and more people-centric. They have to listen to their people. So when you start listening to your people, well, guess what? You start understanding what it means, diversity and inclusion, what means racism or exclusion. So I think that will be my last comment. Make sure that we have access to this opportunity to voice what's happening and create more awareness out there.
Thank you. Antoine.
Thanks a lot, Bruce. Thanks a lot.
Pleasure. Stick around. There's more fun.
I will. Thanks a lot.
Nobody's allowed to leave. Okay. Nobody's allowed to leave. Okay. So we're going to
see you, folks.
Before we get to our next session, we're going to have a few moments from Kirk, and then there'll be some more moments from some supporters, and then we'll have our panelist session come on in just a couple minutes. Kirk, take it away for a moment. Kirk, thank you. Okay.
I just want to give a shout out and express our thanks to some of our supporters for the event. Griffin Advisors Inc., the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, SEMA, Bateman McKay, Crow Soberman Canada, and the CFO Leadership Council, Toronto chapter.
Thank you. Okay, so the next thing is our panelist.
Yes, so Bruce?
Yes.
Before we introduce the panelists, I just wanted to do one thing that's important that I should kickstart is that the land acknowledgement, because, you know, since we're streaming out of the city of Toronto, I wanted to take the opportunity to do the land acknowledgement that Toronto is in the District One Spoon territory, and the District One Spoon territory is a treaty between the Anishinaabe, the Mississaugas, and the Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the territory and protect the land. Subsequent Indigenous nations and peoples, Europeans and all newcomers have been invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. So I think it's important that we recognize and acknowledge that we are on Indigenous lands. Thank you. Take it away.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to go into our next session. We've got some great panelists. We'll introduce them. First, we have Caroline Gale, who's from Accenture, Managing Director of Accenture. We have Mona Giami, who is the Chief Inclusion Officer at PwC, Fostering Diversity and Inclusion there. We have Wim Onua, the Chief Audit Executive of RBC, is going to be talking today. Deborah Rosati is going to be speaking today. She's the CEO of Women Get On Board. She's going to be talking. And we have Leanne Hanaway, who's a CFO and an entrepreneur, is going to be talking about BIPOC professional leadership and advancement. So Hugh, take it away, and then we'll co-moderate. Me and Hugh are going to co-moderate the session. Thank you, Hugh.
Thank you, Bruce. I'm excited to have our panels, and really thank each and everyone, to be here sharing with us, Caroline, Deborah, William, Mona, and Leanne. So I'm going to start off with Caroline. So Caroline, how are you?
I am great, thanks. Glad to be here.
A pleasure having you. We know that you've pulled an all-nighter, so I want to make sure we get you going. Okay. And just wish you and the team the very best with what's happening there. My question for you is, how can organizations empower BIPOC professionals, that's Black, Indigenous, and people of color, to advance in leadership talent pipeline? Any highlights from Accenture that you'd like to share?
Sure, thank you. So I've worked for Accenture for 22 years. And so what I'll talk about are examples that are real. And I've seen organizations grow and change. First, I'd like to also acknowledge how grateful I am to be invited to be here, to be one of the panelists. This is a great opportunity, for all of us finance and accounting professionals to be here. So thank you very much. But I think this is a great time for organizations to advance the leadership talent pipeline. It's not just now, we've all seen what has happened south of the border and quite frankly, what's happening here in Canada, but it's not about lip service. Accenture has created a race and ethnicity roadmap, and our roadmap is a long-term strategy to ensure that BIPOC employees in alignment with our overall strategies will be able to achieve their leadership goals. And specifically for this year, so we have something going year over year till 2025. I'll just go through. We've set a vision for this year. Our focus is on the inclusion, retention, and advancement of Black and Indigenous employees. We've set governance and measurable goals. We've evaluated our talent processes, et cetera, and I will then go through even in more detail some of the things that we're looking at. I'm speaking to this from a position of knowledge and power. Not only am I the lead for financial services for technology in Accenture, but I'm also for a technology group of 2,000 people in Canada. I am the lead of our Black employee resource group. So, the focus is something that we heard from one of our previous speakers, that his organization is also focused on that. But we're looking at developing sustained commitment and leadership accountability. We can't do that without that. So for all of our leaders in Canada, there's an expectation that we will have defined priorities against which we will be assessed related to things in this space. It's not just lip service, right? It's not a short term, we're gonna just do this and move on. We need to enable that we have created for employees bias-free business processes. So in our recruitment, in our staffing of projects, in our performance achievement assessments, we have to reflect on ourselves and ensure that we are doing that. Culture and open dialogue, ensure that we have sustained a culture of allyship. So it's not just enough to say, oh, we're gonna retain, we're gonna hire, we're gonna recruit, we're gonna do all these things for BIPOC employees, but we have to ensure that the culture that we have is something that is inclusive for all. And our long-term goal is to establish Accenture as a leading voice in this market. So I talked about the fact, so our Canadian CEO, this is not lip service, he has assigned himself as being the lead for our Canada-wide Black employee resource group. We have our roundtable where we have defined certain goals, and we publish. You can go and search Accenture now. We are in a growth phase, but we also believe in transparency. Unless you're transparent, you can't be held accountable. So the metrics, and we're going through a process of identifying what those metrics are or what our targets are. Those are, as they are, listed on our various websites. We are 500,000 people around the world, to 5,000 in Canada. But you'll be able to go in and see over time what those metrics are. We have developed specifically in terms of advancing our BIPOC leadership, mentorship programs, sponsorship programs, and these are things all of us as leaders. So obviously I'm managing director. That's a part of my performance achievement process. And someone earlier talked about unconscious bias training. So we've done that. We're going to 2.0 anti-racism training. We're doing our diversity series. We just hosted, for example, for our clients, senior Black clients, but having town halls so folks are seeing it's not just our team members that are talking about this and the efficacy of that, but we're also having our senior Black clients. We have another one coming up for Aboriginal clients to talk about what this means for them and their engagement with us and what this does for the community. Finally, just around our market impact, we have signed on to the Black North Initiative. So for those of you who don't know, you can look it up through West Hall. We have strategic partnerships. We have Indigenous student bursaries. We are trying to get all the way to the universities, to the schools, to all the way through in terms of people being engaged. But people can't do this alone. There is an acknowledgement within our organization that the way we are needs to change to be inclusive for all. Step one, in terms of diversity, you need to make sure that you have diversity and diverse people reflected. But then you have to also create an environment where it's inclusive and folks can live their talent aspirations and be able to be successful. And that is what Accenture is doing. Happy to share. People can look out and search for me, and if there are any organizations that want to understand. We also do work with our clients and have projects in this space. So we are seen as a leader in this space. So happy to share. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caroline, for that insight. It's really refreshing to hear from you what Accenture really is doing and really taking the lead in that space. It's refreshing. The very best to you and the team. Over to you, Bruce, to take on our next panelist.
Okay, Mona Jamie, welcome from PwC. Wait till she comes on screen. How has PwC fostered diversity and inclusion across all levels of the organization? What strategies have been effective, and what lessons can be taken from them? And how have you helped other organizations in their journey?
Thanks, Bruce. Can you see me now on screen?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, great. And you can hear me, so that's great. It's been great to listen to the other panelists speak about this, and I think so many organizations definitely have the right intentions and similar approaches. And I thought, as I sit here and think about exactly what I want to leave and kind of the new ideas or impact that organizations can help really advance their journey, I would say from diversity to inclusion, because that's really the mindset that I would say that's really important for organizations to take. I thought, well, what's kind of the value add? And I think absolutely that data-driven approach has been key and instrumental for us in our journey, and really going from that leading best practices approach of where we thought our leaky pipeline was, and why we didn't have, for example, gender equity or racial equity, to a data-driven approach. So we could totally understand where are the levers that we needed to pull. And as I sit here and think about the discussions I'm having with clients, one of the things I think we're realizing is that many organizations, especially in Canada, don't even necessarily have the data to be able to push along this journey that they're on to really drive transformation. Not only are maybe necessarily their systems set up, but they don't have the data beyond necessarily what they're reporting to from an employment equity perspective. So I think many organizations like PwC, we know our data from a gender perspective. We all know that. We have racial ethnicity data from a visible minority perspective, and we may know who's Indigenous or a person with disability. So I think one of the fundamental and important goals for any organization is to understand their data. And we're undergoing a process where we're trying to get more granular with our data, as we are also one of the companies that has committed to the Black North Initiative and has really committed to increasing representation of our Black professionals at PwC, understanding who our Black professionals are, who our Indigenous professionals are, and people of color are key. And so we're undergoing this cultural transformation exercise, I should say, where we actually are engaging our people in self-identifying and giving and sharing that data. So one of the things I wanted to point out is, as you're taking on this data-driven approach in your strategy, I think what's key is making sure that you have the right data, you have the systems in place, but you're also looking at it from a disaggregated or intersectional lens. So I think one of the things that we often hear is diversity goals around gender. What we tend not to see is disaggregated data around gender. So what we know and research tells us is the double marginalization of women of color. And so when you start looking at that data, make sure that you're looking at it from a gender and racial lens, et cetera, because the story that will tell you and the levers that you're going to need to pull to really advance inclusion within your organization and see that progress within your leadership ranks is key. And I would add to that kind of data piece around how do you create that culture of safety, that psychological safety, and that speak up culture where people feel safe to self-identify. And that's a whole nother, spectrum of conversation that we can absolutely get into. So besides that, intersectional lens and disaggregated data approach in your data-driven strategy and organization, I think to us, one of the other ones I wanted to really give information on and lessons learned for us as a PwC global journey and with our clients as we've been on this for several decades now globally, is this really importance of this governance structure and accountability. Who is accountable in your organization for diversity inclusion? And making sure that it's not diversity and inclusion team, it's not HC, it's not a silo. And for it to be truly embedded within your DNA and within your organization, it needs to be aligned with your purpose, your business strategy, your priorities, your vision, your values, and the leadership team, your CEO needs to really own and drive this. And so I think that's one of the things that has been a big PwC lesson learned. And when you look at the way we're set up globally, we actually have a global governance structure where our global chair holds our territory senior partners, our CEOs, accountable. And we look at this global inclusion index to see how are those territories, how are those countries doing? So the accountability sits with the CEO. They're accountable, and the leadership team within those organizations help support and drive that through the business. So I think one of the last things I wanted to say is, for this to be really true sustained impact in any organization, that accountability framework, that leadership commitment needs to be there, and it can't be driven in silo. It needs to be something that's embedded within your organization, tied to your business strategy. It's not a separate D&I strategy. It's tied to your mission, your purpose, your values. And it's embedded in your DNA such that you're looking at it not only within how do you drive potential for your people within your organization, but in every decision you're making around the products and services you're offering to your clients. And I think that's where you truly see success within an organization.
Thank you, Mona. Thank you so much for your insights. Next, I'm going to hand it back to Hugh, and we'll go to our next guest. And thank you, Mona.
Oh, thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Mona. So I'm going to share with our next panelist, William Onua. Hey, William, welcome.
Hi, how are you, Hugh? How are you doing?
I'm good. Great to have you. So
thank you.
The question for you relates to what are some of the experiences you have? There have been some successes in BIPOC representation within the financial services sector, right? But there's still somewhere that can be done. So how do we continue increasing representation and build stronger talent pipelines?
Well, thank you very much, Hugh. Great question. And thank you for having me on this really great event. I mean, I know Bruce was sitting and dancing away with the DJ, but this is just a new way to have a conference. I love it. To your question, I mean, if you look at all the financial services, and we have great representation here, great testimonials of how we've had, BIPOC representation at highest level across the different financial services, whether it's in the big banks or whether it's in, consultancy services or whether it's in asset management group. There's been there's great success, things that we can celebrate. But I will never say that is enough because it's disproportionate when you look at how we are represented in this organization. So what should we be doing more? I will say, first of all, we should celebrate where we are today, but it is not the end of the journey. It's just the beginning. And so we should be looking to say, okay, so what are the 4 pillars that we can lean on? One is, where are the pipeline? Where are we getting our pipeline? And so how do we work on pipeline? How do we try to build our pipeline? Because in organizations, and I think my colleagues who have been on earlier talked about this whole use of data analytics, where you can You can break down the organization to say, okay, so who are we talking about in BIPOC? Separate the BIPOC, build it out, look into the data. Not just the people who are the top today, but look at the people who are we recruiting into the organization? Who are the people that are in the organization? Who is being profiled in talent management reviews that we're having in different organizations? When you look at the talent management reviews that are being conducted, what percentage is BIPOC? And who are the real potentials who are getting the stretch assignments? So we need to start looking at that pipeline so we don't end up when the people at the top today move on, then we go back to the same old problem. Where are the BIPOC representation? So the first thing is have a pipeline strategy that we need to develop. The second one is what I call what we need to do ourselves, which is how do we educate ourselves in terms of what are the opportunity, what are the career path that you can take? I mean, most of the time people think, I'm just going to school. When I finish school, I'll decide what I'm going to do. Well, to decide what you're going to do, you need to have an understanding of the various options that is, ahead of you. So when we go to schools, when we talk at schools, how do we help them to understand the various types of career path within finance? The fact that you're a CPA doesn't mean you only have to be an accountant. You don't have to. There's several paths that can take you. That's number one. The fact that you studied finance doesn't mean you have to work in finance area. You can, there are different paths that you can follow in your career growth. How do we bring that education to schools, to high schools? The third part I look at is even within the organization, how strong are we as BIPOC in mentoring other BIPOC? How do we get down to really being a strong voice from a mentoring and sponsorship point of view for other BIPOC? So we can actually have direct impact within the organization in terms of where the BIPOC, the BIPOC population is heading. Because one of the things you find navigating corporate structures, navigating corporate politics, and I use the word corporate politics, not in the negative sense, but navigating corporate politics, it's something that is sometimes bewildering, even for the best of us. Sometimes you don't know how you're being perceived. And sometimes you may think you're being perceived one way, but you're not really being perceived that way. And so how do we help to navigate for our fellow BIPOCs? The last one I will talk about is really, this is where we really have to become much more stronger at it, is there are recruiting firms across Canada. How have we been having discussions with some of these recruiting firms so that when they are truly looking to fill certain positions, they are looking at BIPOC and not just, okay, let's just have someone on the slate. And when you look at that slate, the person they've picked is the first person you're going to knock off the slate. But when they report out, they will say, my slate was a comprehensive slate. And so how do we start working with the BIPOC group that exists within the recruitment firms to say, you are the ones that some of these large firms go to first. Where are the opportunity for you to bring in BIPOC talent to the table? It's not enough to say there are not enough BIPOC talents. There are enough BIPOC talent. So how do we start bringing them together, working with some of these recruiting firms? So if I were to summarize, I'll say there's internal work to be done by the BIPOC, senior leaders who exist today, whether it's in terms of mentorship, helping to navigate the corporate structures. There's work to be done externally through schools, through building pipelines, through education at schools. And then the final one, which is also happen to be external, is now having a very deliberate strategy towards some of the headhunters that we have in Canada.
Thank you so much, William. Very, very insightful perspective there. And we're delighted to take note of those key pointers. Bruce, over to you to introduce our next panelist.
Thank you, William. Glad you're enjoying it. Thank you. That was great. Okay, Deborah Rosati, who's the CEO of Women Again on Board, is going to bring some very interesting perspectives from the board perspective. Deborah, what changes are you seeing that boards are doing to add BIPOC women leaders to boards? And can you share any additional information or data you have?
Thank you, Bruce, and delighted. And thank you, Carolyn and Mona and William for your sort of setting the stage for me. So can you see me? Can you see me? Hear me?
All good. All good.
Delightful. And so I come here very humbled and very honored to be here. I am coming from the profession. I am an FCPA. I've been a member in good standing since 1981. I take the profession very seriously and really delighted when Bruce reached out to me to be part of this conference. And I work day in and day out. I've been on boards for 20 years. And the common denominator for me as a serving corporate director, I've been probably the only woman on most of the boards that I've been on. They've been emerging technology, emerging in the cannabis sector. And so I know what it is to sometimes not feel included and not feel, you know, that you've been considered at around the table. So I really wanted to put my lens on from a board perspective because Women Get on Board. We are a member-based company. We are across Canada. I founded it in 2015 with really the mandate to advance more women to corporate boards. And that is a diverse set of women with skills and expertise in industries, ethnicity, visible minorities. We have a cross sector. And what I'm really encouraged by is that boards are starting to think about, we know that in 2020, the Canadian Business Corporations Act put diversity disclosure requirements that went beyond gender. They have visible minority, Indigenous, and disabilities. And so companies now have to track that and disclose. It's a comply and explain if they're a public company. And so those rules just came into place. So there is more heightened awareness with everything that's going around. I can tell you, we work with companies, with boards when they're going through renewal, and it's a conversation that goes very much, we need to bring diversity on our board, and you have the conversation, what type of diversity. And what I can tell you, in the last 6 months, we've had 3 particular board shortlist engagements where they specifically have asked for candidates. They wanted a woman and they wanted someone from a BIPOC community. And so that was very encouraging. But we had to go deep, we had to go hard, because I don't think anyone wants to be a token around the table. I certainly never want to be the woman token on the board. And I would say, as finance and accounting professionals, we really have a strong financial expertise that we bring to the board. And without a doubt, let's use that card in every way you have, if that's your entry point to getting on a board, because inevitably, every board needs someone to serve on the audit committee with financial expertise. So that's your seat. Own it. Doesn't mean you're always going to come into a board and serve on an audit committee, but own it. You've got that expertise. And I think as finance and accounting professionals, we also have other unique skills that we really have to play up. And so my conversation today is more about what can you do as an individual to get your name out there, to make connections, to expand your offering as a board member, because really it is a unique skill set that you bring. And you've got the lenses in which companies are looking for diversity comes to diversity of thought, and it comes in age, it comes in it comes through age, it comes through visible minorities, it comes through skills, it comes through geographic, it comes through different industries. So, you know, really hone your skill and your diversity that you bring to the table. And really at the end of the day, boards are made up of a collective group of people, and it's about fit. It's about chemistry. So you can have all the hard C's, meaning the competencies that go, but it really boils down to fit. So you need to really, in the previous discussions from the panelists, was very much about looking for sponsors, looking for mentors, look for those people in your organization or outside your network, maybe within CPA Canada or the other professional organizations, where you can ask for an introduction. You can look and say, hey, how did you get on your first board? It really is a journey. And as professionals, we're always about continuous improvement, continuous learning. That's why we're all on this conference today. So I always look at boards. It's a very, very competitive marketplace if you want to be on a corporate board, and you need to rise above and you need to be a thought leader in a particular area. And so I always like to think about your elevator pitch. And I like to use my elevator pitch as an example. And I think over time, as you evolve in your professional career, these are things you should be thinking about to get your name out. And I like to say that I'm an entrepreneur with finance and governance expertise in high growth, transformational companies in technology, retail, consumer, and cannabis sector. It's pretty, it starts with my skills. It talks about the types of companies, and then it talks about the industry. And that's what I have to offer. And a lot of my opportunities from boards have come from the accounting firms. My nexus has been because you're working with an audit partner with one of the accounting firms. If you're on an audit committee, they will see you, they see you at the table. And it's typically the clients going to them because they're trusted advisors and saying, we're looking for this type of skill set. Who do you know in your network? So you need to get known. And, if you have great programming in your organization, get sponsorship, get the opportunity to be on a subsidiary board if you're in the financial services. Have an opportunity to be on a board, maybe a charity board where your organization gives back. Take stretch goals, maybe go on a global assignment right now we're not really traveling, but virtually, stretch yourself as a professional and really, as professionals, we're held to the highest standard that we can as professionals. And you know what? Show up with purpose. Why would you want to? What is the purpose of being on that board? And what are you passionate about? And I can tell you, interesting enough, on a little sidebar here, my passion is dance, and I was on the board of National Ballet School. And the CFO is on this call, on this chat line, and we had a little exchange already. And I can tell you, being involved in the community is phenomenal. People see you outside of your day-to-day work. And as professionals, I know it's always thought and offered to, get involved in your community. So perhaps start some board work at a community level. And I can tell you, my passion for dance came loud and clear, and I joined the board of the National Ballet School Board. And I met amazing individuals that I would never have met had I not joined that board. So I think when you're thinking about your journey in your career and how you get known, is you've got to have purpose, you have to have passion, and you have to be present. You've got to show up. And sometimes things don't come to you. You've got to go after them. And, I've been 20 years on corporate boards. It really started, I'd been a CFO of a technology startup company in Ottawa, took the company from ground zero to exit. I went into venture capital. And through the venture capital role that I had as a general partner, I ended up serving on boards. So I got that through, my day job. And I think it was William that said earlier, don't think of yourself, don't be defined of being an accountant. I think it's baseline skills that you have, and it's credibility, but it's what you do beyond that. And make sure you're getting good business operational experiences. And there's no reason why anyone in the finance and accounting profession can't be COOs, can't be CEOs. I think we all have to think big and think bold, and that's what's going to get you in the boardroom.
One moment, I have myself on mute. Thank you, Deborah. Okay, we'll hand it back to Hugh for the next portion. Hugh?
Well, thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Deborah, for the insight there. So we have Leanne Hanaway. Hey, Leanne, you're in house. Good.
Hi.
Welcome. Delighted to have you on board. My question for you, how can we ensure BIPOC professionals are prepared for leadership opportunities?
Well, first, I want to thank you. I want to thank Bruce and the whole team over at Canada CFOs and the New Humanity Initiative for inviting me here. Really happy to talk on the subject of being a Black woman, just how I've kind of progressed in corporate, looking at different avenues for leadership. To answer your question, Hugh, I think there's lots of things that we can do. We've heard a little bit about it already. I think you need to seize every opportunity And if those opportunities aren't coming to you, that you kind of have to create your own. I give an example of maybe 10 years back in my career, I went to go work in the Paris, France office of the firm that I was working for. And a lot of people said, why did you do that? Why did you do that? And if I were to really go back to the root of the decision to like actually explore France, yes, it was the opportunity to work in a French speaking environment, work on larger clients. But the root of that really came from where I was working. I was the lead senior accountant of where I was working. You could figure out what of the big fours that was. And there was an opportunity for a senior to go to the California office. And California, Silicon Valley at that time was in the heart of being tech and emerging. And I really was hoping that I was going to get selected for that opportunity, being the one who was selected to be the lead senior accountant and bring senior issues to management. But unfortunately, somebody else was chosen. And it was also this decision that was made because in California at the time, who was going, it made more sense for guys to go, frankly, and maybe just also in Silicon Valley, the environment that was in, they also just thought a woman might not be successful being there. So it was an opportunity that was not given to me, but I really did seize that opportunity to say, well, where else could I go? What skills do I have? French language speaker, I might as well figure out some place where I can go to have some more opportunities. So that was really kind of the root of my decision to go there. Of course, it brought risk, but I think in that risk, you gain a lot of experience. So the first thing I would say is, how do you prepare for leadership opportunities? Is you really got to seize any opportunity that you have to grow and create skill. And if you can't get certain opportunities, to create your own. I'm also going to say something that might seem kind of radical, but I think loyalty is mostly overrated when it comes to opportunities. And I say that mostly because loyalty to friends, to family, to values, all those things are definitely core. But loyalty to a job or a boss that doesn't love you back, I just think that is something that sometimes we fall into a trap, maybe not seeing our worth and seeing our value. And, at those times, we should really think about moving on, labor for folks that don't give you credit. I think we have to examine the environments that we're in and take the opportunity to move from them and get away from them. So we value healthy relationships. I do feel that you should build healthy relationships, but when it's not there, that you should move on. So, really for that, I think there's a saying that says, there will always be someone who can't see your worth. Don't let that person be you. So really important to take to heart. And the last thing I would just say around how you could be ready for opportunities is to also think about entrepreneurship. I mean, a lot of the things that we're talking about right now is about opting in, leaning in. That book that came out from Sheryl Sandberg about leaning into corporate, but it did come from an environment of privilege in really writing that book. A lot of things there actually resonated with me until another one of my friend who's more deep into intersectionality. She corrected me on like some of the views in there that weren't really working for women of color in terms of strategies. So I would just add a strategy instead of just opting in. Is maybe opting out, finding a way to build your own brand, build your own businesses. William said it, Deborah said it, like if you can also, be a CPA, but have a lot of talent outside of finance, whether it's a COO, whether it is a CEO of your own company, but build your own brand, build your multiple streams of income. That's what my business is really concentrating on, helping single women in particular build their wealth, so that you can have more opportunities, you can have the ability to start what you need to start and build what you need to build. So really those are the three areas where I'd say as a BIPOC professional and as, where you have an opportunity to grow. So seize every opportunity. I do think loyalty is overrated and consider entrepreneurship in your journey.
Thank you so much, Leon. Very, very profound insights and perspective shared there. And I noticed the chat, the comments speak for itself. And we really appreciate you bringing that lens to the panel. So again, with every best wish to you, Deborah, William, Mona, and Caroline, thank you so much. I'm going to turn over to Bruce to introduce our moderators, and take it away, Bruce.
Thank you so much. That was great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Great panelists, great conversation. You're right. I see the chat. There's a lot going on, which is a good sign that people are engaged, and that's fabulous. Okay. I want to introduce Tosin and Sharon. Okay. They're going to lead the Q&A session of this portion, and take it away.
Thank you, Bruce. Thanks to all the panelists. We've had some really rich perspectives shared here today. And it's, we're grateful. This is where we have all the courageous conversations. And so the courageous questions are going to come. The chat has been rich, as Bruce and Hugh noted. And there are some questions that were shared with me privately as well for the persons who might have been a bit shy. So we're going to do it in order. We might not be able to get to all of them, but we'll try our best. I'll start off, and then Tosin will follow on. So the one I have here is, the question is in respect to the hiring of BIPOCs and the mentoring of BIPOC employees in the corporate world. And William, I think this one was your name was mentioned here, so I'm gonna post it to you. How does the panel respond to a perception that once BIPOC leaders reach to the top, they don't want to rock that boat, so to speak. So hence there's a stumbling block in active corporate mentorship. How can you respond to that?
So thanks a lot, Sharon. I think we all live with certain kind of perception that people have of
William, you're
BIPOC.
muted.
Oh,
yeah, no, I think I'm on.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we're hearing you now.
Okay, sorry. So there's some perception, for example, if 3 Black guys or 3 people of color gather together at the water cooler, something is wrong. Well, why are they together? Well, what are they discussing? Well, you know what? We have to be able to say to ourselves, I'm comfortable being who I am. That's the first thing is about our mindset. I'm comfortable being a Black guy. I don't have no apologies. I'm not apologizing for it. I'm a Black guy. And there's no reason why I cannot, coexist with my other Black people or people of color. I think the key question for us is, there's this perception that once you've gotten to the top, therefore you have arrived, and once you've arrived, nobody else should come close to you. That's where we need to break that down, because the fact that I am there, and I like the way Kamala Harris put it, I don't want to be the last person that got there. The goal for me being there is not so that I always remain in history as the person that got there. The goal in history is that I got there and I kept the door open. So number one is my own performance. My own performance at that level has to be above board, and everybody has to see it and know that, yes, it's my performance that got me there, that enables me to be there. So when you are talking, when you're mentoring, I mean, I get the number of people who send me notes, oh, can you mentor? Can you tell me how you navigated the organizational structure to get to where you are? When you're mentoring, you have to be able to put across the real fact, which is there's hard work. Sometimes you have to work twice as hard. So what? The key is ensuring that when you're passing down that message, you're not passing it down on a platter of gold or some very easy path to get there. As long as you can hitch your wagon to this person and that person, you get to the top. It's about being honest in terms of the challenges you faced. It's about being honest on the day-to-day issues you still have to deal with as a BIPOC person, and also encouraging them in terms of, because we normally get into an organization and want to follow a single path. There's no single path. that you should, if you get in a stretch assignment, go for it. So when you're mentoring as a BIPOC person, I always say you have to be very, very candid in terms of the work you do, in terms of the challenge you face. And it is not, it's not an easy path. The fact that you're a BIPOC person doesn't give you the right to the keys to the city. You don't get the keys to the city just because you're a BIPOC. But you have to work hard for it. You have to show that I'm just as good. Now, what I say to people is, I call it PIE. One is your performance. Your performance has to show how good you are. Integrity, you perform with integrity. It's the exposure piece that your mentor and your sponsor helps you with. That exposure piece is what you may not get. So I work on the principle of PIE, your performance with integrity, aligned with the exposure. That's what I always feel. So I'll take more questions, or my other colleagues can also chime in.
Yeah, so thank you, William. This is Carolyn.
Thank you so much, William. That was fantastic. Like I've learned, and I've always said to people, and to my colleagues and team members, let your work speak for you. That's all you need to do. That's such a great perspective. Thank you so much. So I'll leave it now.
Caroline wanted to say
Carolyn
something.
wanted to add to that. I think Carolyn wanted to add to
Oh, Carolyn. Oh, sorry.
Yes, no problem, no problem. Thank you. I think that was great. What William said, I think for those who didn't hear, maybe that should even be documented in the chat. I think that PIE, and it's starting with your performance and integrity and then exposure in terms of your mentor or sponsor, right? Your mentor or sponsor doesn't have to be a BIPOC employee, but they have to be someone in your organization. You have to be in the right organization for you. You're bringing yourself. It's, people, I've had people say to me, well, now with what has happened to George Floyd, now that what has happened, these large companies are doing this thing, it's a double whammy for you. The path is laid out. Are you out of your mind? Like, you have to, if anything, what folks have now learned is that, and I also mentor and sponsor people. By the time you get a BIPOC employee sitting in that chair in front of you, the things that person has had to do to get there, you need to understand that. It's not just, I have a bachelor's in computer science, I have an MBA, I have this, I have that. And everybody here, if you go and look us up on LinkedIn, everybody has all these designations and these degrees. You have to be, by the time you sit in front of somebody, you have to have been the top or the number one or whatever else. So that performance has to always be on point. Okay. At the end of the day, no one can take that away from you. Don't slide into the idea that, well, if I just be the one who knows how to get, the Starbucks, I guess you have Starbucks delivered to people's houses because you can't show up in the office with that. That can only take you so far. And I'll tell you, the organizations that I've been in, and I go in like a lot of my co-panelists, the different organizations, there is, unfortunately, still that focus on us BIPOC employees. We have to almost be better than, okay? We have to almost do more than, and that is just it. Over time, we'll get to that. But really, you have to, do your best, operate with integrity, assuming everybody who's on this call, being an accounting or finance professional would expect that. But then you have to do the work to find that right exposure. Exposure could be the right company to work for, the right board to get on, the right mentor or sponsor to align yourself to, who may not, for whatever reason, align with you. But you have to put in the work. All of us who are here, and for all of you who are listening and learning, and I'm assuming, I'm not going to the chat, somebody's writing out the PIE. You need to write that down, paste it on your vision board, take that with you everywhere, okay? I have, as I've sat here listening to William, you need to show up and do the work, but then also align yourself. Don't sit in an organization, well, I'm gonna do this course and then this is gonna happen. Look, sometimes it's not for you. I've been at a place for 22 years. It works for me. It has moved, I've had 15 careers, but that's me, okay? So, but you need to do that work. Thank you.
That's right, Carolyn. Thank you. Awesome.
Sharon, I know we're running out of time, but I think one important thing to add to that is, unfortunately, it's not a meritocracy out there. And I think what organizations and leaders who are responsible and in the power to make decisions need to understand is that majority groups are judged based on their potential and minority groups based on proven accomplishments. And I think the research shows that loud and clear. So yes, unfortunately, BIPOC professionals are working 5-10 times as hard. But if organizations who are making leadership promotion decisions, et cetera, aren't aware of those implicit biases and the everyday decisions being made, we are still going to look at the top of every organization and see a homogeneous group. So people need to really understand it's not a meritocracy, and that these biases exist in the systems and in the people who got positions of power. So understanding that really truly creates that inclusive leader, an inclusive organization. So I just wanted to add to that. I think, it's great, you can work hard. And unfortunately, we see our BIPOC individuals working 100 times as hard, but for people to recognize, some of the implicit biases that exist around these individuals.
Thanks, Mona. So true. Thanks for that perspective. I'll leave it now to Tosin to field the question from, I think it was Erin next.
Yeah. So like he will say, we're having a spirited conversation. There's so much going on in the chat box. And I'll take the first question, which is from Erin Joe. How can organizations ensure they use BIPOC data without it getting abused? Deborah, could you please speak to this? Or anyone?
Yeah, could you just repeat the question, please? Because I wasn't ready.
Okay, and actually this one could go, it's general, anyone can handle it actually. It's really, how can organizations ensure that they use BIPOC data without it getting abused? Example, if it's not to hire BIPOC professionals or hold them back. So your perspective, Deborah, is more from the board. So anyone who would be able to speak to that can take it on,
I think I'll bow out. I'll let Carolyn or Mona or William speak on that one. Thanks.
Okay. Sure, I can start, and because we're going through that process right now. So there is a concern, I know in certain geographies, that data is public, is reported on, and it's a part of their, legislative process. I think in Canada, and we've gone back and forth on this a lot, you have to volunteer that information by law, because they want to make sure there are no biases, which is what I think you're talking to or alluding to, Tosin, that is not used against the individual. I think you have to, getting back to, again, William and his, PIE integrity. If you're working for an organization and you have any concerns about how they're using your data against you potentially, then maybe that's not the organization for you. Right now, most organizations that I'm aware of, it's not just Accenture, are looking for how can they use that information, whether it's relating to ethnicity, disabilities, sexual orientation, et cetera, to be the best that they can be for their organization, because it's a war for talent. So they want to keep you. It costs a lot of money for companies to recruit. It costs a lot of money for them to lose people or saying, I'm leaving XYZ because I don't think I can meet my career goals, or I'm feeling that, there's some racist bias against me. So it's your right, actually, a lot of people don't understand. If you work for an organization and you feel that they're using that sort of data against yourself or others, then you can report that company. And quite frankly, before you even get to that point, you shouldn't be there. I think most organizations are, and you've heard it not just from my company, but a lot of the panelists that have spoken, organizations now are using this type of data to understand more about their employees, to understand about what training needs to be put in place, leadership development programs. A number of folks that have spoken, not just from consulting firms, have said they have mentorship programs, sponsorship programs for people of color, for BIPOC employees, for women, et cetera. So I think fundamentally, and I talk about people knowing their rights, if you're in an organization and you think potentially they may be using this information against you, for you to be your full self, you need to think about whether that's a place for you. What organizations are doing is using that information to ensure that they are putting in place the right programs for their employees to be successful. And really, at the end of the day, it's a business imperative. Companies with higher ethnic diversity perform, I don't have to tell accountants and finance people, 35% higher than financial outcomes than others. So they want to retain you, okay? So use that as a power base, not to look at it as in terms of how they're gonna use this against me.
I'll just add to that. I think what's really key is to communicate with your employees and your organizations who has access to the data. You know, as a CA who went through the audit path, I can tell you that you can't audit your own work. So at the end of the day, you know, for us, HC is not analyzing this data. So it doesn't sit with HR, human capital, it's separate of that function. So I think you have to be really clear and articulate that. And you also have to make sure that system is in place where there's separation of power, so that data can't be used, you know, in an unjust and unequitable way. So I think that's one of the things that needs to be communicated. And as you communicate to your employees and your organization and building that trust and transparency around that, let them know how they're going to play a role in achieving your priorities as an organization to really activate equity. So for you to be really able to move the dial, I think in Canada, we're 8,000 people. I don't know who all the people are who identify as Black at this moment in time, but I need to help communicate and create that culture of psychological safety where people feel safe to self-identify, and let them know that this will help us progress and move the dial on the equity that we want to see within our racialized population. And so I think building that trust and having your ERGs, we call them our inclusion networks, along on that process to really communicate that trust and how that data is used, and that separation of power of that data is so key.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. You've done awesome. In the interest of time, I'm gonna have to cut it. I'm so sorry to our audience, the ones that we have not gotten to. But hopefully later on, we'll be able to have some further interaction or individually. I'll hand back over now to Bruce.
Thank you.
To take it away.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. We have to have another session just on panelists because we could have talked for hours. And I really give kudos to everybody. That was just fabulous and appreciate it. I see the chat. That's wonderful. Okay, so we're going to take a break. We have another session. We're a couple minutes behind, but that's cool. It's worth it. So,
Bruce,
yes.
Don't you see that Kirk is warming up for this next segment? So let's give a shout out to our supporters, Toronto Entrepreneurs Strip Conference, the National Aboriginal Capital Corporation Association, the NAWCA, and the Canadian Association of Urban Financial Professionals, you know, who are partners in this event, and the shout out to SAP Canada, their representative, they're in the house. So we really want to thank our supporters there, and turn over to the man on the screen, Kirk Forcon, and take it away. Bruce, I think this is a great.
Okay, so we have a very exciting segment coming up. There are actually 6 segments, very interesting. Each of them is 25 minutes, where they have a moderator. They have 2 leaders who will be talking about actions, our unique Voices of Action session. Okay, so now we're going to go to the breakout rooms automatically, assuming you register a breakout, and we'll see you in a bit.
Yes, so we turn over to Denisha, Alan, and Ken, and Celia, for a fireside chat.
Welcome, welcome everyone.
I am Denisha Allen. I'm a financial advisor with Edward Jones. Before we get started, I just want to make sure that everybody is muted and so that we can stay respectful. And let's put our chats, our questions and comments in the chat box, and we'll have those answered for you. It is my distinct pleasure, everyone, to introduce to you our speakers for today, Celia Michael and Ken Green. They are experienced CPAs and partners of GMS, Chartered Professional Accountants. Welcome to you both.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Absolutely, I can hear you.
Yeah, thank you.
There
Yes.
you are.
All
So
right, that's one.
awesome. So, we're here to talk about economic mobility for the BIPOC community.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Please mute. We're here to talk about economic mobility for the BIPOC community. My question here for you is, being successful entrepreneurs in your domain, how can we better engage BIPOC individuals to take advantage of opportunities in entrepreneurship?
Okay, so thank you so much, for this excellent opportunity. I want to thank you and Bruce and Sharon and everybody. This is just great. And I love to have more of Kirk so I can jam some more. All right. So there are two critical things. So to address your question, there are two critical things that I believe are important. As accounting, can you hear me?
Saying my name.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh,
I can
okay.
hear you.
We can hear you,
Christine, kindly mute, please.
I think
Thank
Christine
you.
needs to mute. Okay. So at first, I think there are two critical things that we have to look at. As accounting or any professionals in private practice, we need to think of ourselves as operating a business and not being technocrats. We have to think about how we structure our business. We have to be professional. We have to hire right. We have to determine the best practices for our organization. And we mustn't be afraid to invest, because this gives your organization credibility. Also, whether or not you're in professional practice, when you're an entrepreneur, it's still relevant to structure your business properly. And additionally, you have to ensure that your financial records are up to date. Now, how I say these two things because I want to say, you might be saying, how do these two things position us to take advantage of opportunities in entrepreneurship? So I'm going to be very honest here, and you might not like you may not like the comment, but it is what it is. It is what I see in practice. And I do have a diverse mix of clients, as does Ken. We have BIPOC, non-BIPOC, private entrepreneurs, professionals in private practice. So, and not for profits. So I can confidently say to you that those who adhere to the two principles of structuring the organization right, making sure your financial records are in order, they are poised to quickly grasp opportunities. And I'll give you a practical example of how sometimes, we shoot ourselves in the foot sometimes as a BIPOC community. And again, as I said, it's not a broad spectrum, but I'm just saying the things that hinder us. So, for example, some of our BIPOC clients were the most ones who were unable to take advantage of the COVID-19 funding because, in how they structure the business, they favor cash payments because you don't want to pay HST, right? And so therefore one of the criteria was that you had to show a certain level of expenses. Well, they didn't have it to show because it was cash, so it's off the books. So it put them in a position that they're not able to qualify for that 40,000 CEBA loan, of which 10,000 you get free, right? And so even though this is a COVID example, it also relates to bank loans, because this is what the banks are looking at in order to provide you with cash flow, because cash flow which is lines of credits and favorable cash flows that don't strangle you, this is the lifeblood of your business. So, that's one of the areas that I'm thinking of. I'm sure Ken will have something else to add.
Absolutely, Ken.
Oh, yes, yes. So thank you for that. Again, I want to thank you for organizing this event. It's been such a pleasure sitting in here and listening to all the good presentations we've had so far. So in terms of entrepreneurship for us, so let me just go back a little bit and talk about the reason why we decided to go into business in the first place. Because Celia and I, we are professionals as well, making good income in corporate Canada. But at some point, we decided to make a shift into entrepreneurship. And the reason for that is just to establish some control over our careers, establish some control over the opportunities that we'll see. Because I think that going into business just opens the door for you for limitless opportunities. And so that's some of the things we've been doing. But the truth is that it takes hard work. It takes hard work. It takes, it is very challenging.
Sorry, Ken. We lost Ken?
I think he froze.
Okay.
He will come back on.
Okay.
Yeah, so I wanted to. He was talking about how he started. Tell me about, because you guys are
partners. Yes. So when he comes back, then we can jump in. He can take over. But yes, so as he was saying, we wanted to establish more control, have more control over what it is that we had, because as someone said in the earlier, I think it was William who mentioned that, as an accounting professional, you don't just have to be in private practice. You can do so many things, because both Ken and I, yes, we have a practice, but we also have multiple streams of income, which is a very important thing for that, because I am a lecturer. So does Ken. He lectures. We invest in real estate. We do other things. So there are lots of other opportunities that we can take advantage of, right? So that was one of the reasons why we actually got involved in or sought this path. And I think Ken just sent me a text and said he was.
Yeah, sorry, I'm back. Yeah,
okay,
I don't know
good,
what
thank
happened.
you.
Somehow I just got booted out into a different breakout room.
Okay, go ahead, Ken. I just explained to them, the multiple streams of income, and that we got into, just picking up on your point where you were saying that we got into the business because we wanted to exercise more control. I didn't get much further than that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's one of the reasons why we got into business, to be able to establish some sort of control over how much we make in terms of income and the type of impact we create in the community that we serve, or in our clients that we serve. So that's why we believe that building a business offers a lot of great opportunities. And we understand that the natural transition for most people is going from being employed and into business. And we know that transition is tough, is always challenging. And so that's why when we talk about business, we talk about teaching people about mindset, coming up with a mindset for business, educating yourself on some of the things that you need to start learning to be successful in business, figuring out, because if you look at the two main reasons why people fail, is figuring out how to get clients. And particularly if you're in the BIPOC community, it becomes even more challenging. Are you able to command or to set up a business that will allow you to even get clients outside of your community? but that's not saying that you can't succeed even in your own community. There's just a lot of opportunity. And one of the things we started doing recently is to start educating, because one of the reasons why we don't even have a business where we can only serve the Black community, because sometimes, you know, it may be challenging to build a business around the Black community, but it shouldn't be, because one of the things we started doing recently is to start educating our clients and start educating our potential clients. Because if you start leading with education, then people will you start opening doors not just for your own business, but for the community that you're serving. We talked about ways to, when it comes into business, okay, how can you start opening your doors for financing, right? And that's one of the things Celia was talking about, you know, running a business with integrity, making sure that you're doing everything correctly, you're complying with the regulations. And because if you do that, then you don't have any shame or any reason to hide your books. And that way you open yourself for financing opportunities when those show up. The importance of mentorship and coaching. Because sometimes you think you can do stuff yourself, but no, if you continue to run business on your own, it's just a recipe for you to remain small forever.
Mhm.
And so the way you grow is to tap into mentorship. And that's one of the things we've done. Celia has done that, you know, tapping into mentorship that has even allowed her to travel outside of the country and to learn from other people that are also in the same business. So these are some of the things that has opened up for us when it comes to business. And one other important point when I talk about control is also talking about the opportunity that business gives you to tap into all the different supply chain opportunities within your business, because that's one of the ways you even create all these multiple streams of income, right? And so for us, we are running an accounting business, but are there other opportunities for us to even tap into other areas of income? A few years ago, we bought our own space, and now we can even generate rental income from renting out part of our space. Is there opportunity to train others that want to even get into accounting, right? And those are some of the opportunities we are looking into right now. And so there are just so many things that open, so many doors that open up for you once you start tapping into the power of entrepreneurship and getting into business for yourself.
So I just wanted to add something to that, right? Because on top of a very critical point, which, you know, Ken probably won't even want to acknowledge himself, but he is like a real entrepreneur at heart, right? And I am more, I would be the one who is more of a technocrat, right? And so when I'm speaking about not seeing yourself as a technocrat, I'm actually speaking to myself, because, and it's so good when you have another business partner who can see things in a different light, because Ken casually mentioned, you know, we own our own space. Well, if it was up to me alone as a technocrat, we would never own our own space, right? Because I'm still thinking, you would still be thinking of yourself as, oh, you are you're a CPA, so the best thing for you to do is just sit down, do your books, do the people's books, get their taxes out on time. But no, you have to look beyond that, right? We are just selling accounting services. So we are an entrepreneurship firm, and we have to also think about legacy, right? That is a huge thing that we don't think about, legacy. And I've learned so much from my own clients, my non-BIPOC clients, to be very frank, right? And, you know, I'll just give this one example. And this has actually been something that I saw in Ken as well. So I have a client, and he's in the health sector, and he has six clinics, right? And what I realized is that he owned every one of the buildings that his clinics are located in. He owns every one of those buildings. And I was thinking, why are you owning the buildings? And, you know, so the point is, after he has, his point is the buildings are his legacy for his children and for himself going forward. Once he retires, he may keep one of his practices, but he will sell the actual practices, but not the building. So he's maintaining that, and that will continue, because when they buy the practice, then they're going to have to pay him rent. And even in one of the practices, one of the buildings that he had, he put up a structure on top of it so that he was able to create rental units on that structure as well. So, and then when I saw that, I said, oh my goodness. And then this is how now we have started encouraging our clients to continue, try your best to own your real estate, own as much as you can, and try to build your legacy. So as we learn, because as accountants, we are exposed to so much information. As we learn, we are trying to educate and educate our clients, and especially even those within the BIPOC community, so that they can take advantage of opportunities.
Yes, that's awesome. So Ken, what does legacy mean for you?
Well, I think so. Legacy just means building something beyond, I think, beyond yourself. And it could come in many forms. It may be leaving a business behind that other people coming behind you can carry on and run. It may be leaving something behind that maybe your own kids can carry on and run. It may be creating impact in the community, right? The way you serve the community in such a way that the community will always remember you for the impact you've created. So one of the things Celia and I have done recently is to establish the Black Business Network. So this is something that we're just building out now. And this is part of the legacy we want to leave behind. For our Black-owned businesses. And so it was a great honor to host an event a few weeks ago where we started by educating, and now we're going to figure out a way to carry that going, and to see how we can move as many Black businesses from $0 to $1 million in sales per year. So that is the importance of legacy, right? So building something. So when we talk to business owners, one of the things you find in our community is people start business, then at some point they leave the business. And so they don't build a business that they can turn around and sell. And when we advise our clients, that's some of the things we talk about. How do you build a business that you just don't close your door one day and then just leave? Right? So build value within the business so that if you don't even want to go ahead with the business, there is something for you to at least sell when you want to retire or when you want to move into something else. And so that is all, that is the main thing about legacy. Because if you have a business that you can sell, then at some point you can simply walk away from that business and the business can just continue without you. And so that's the way I think about legacy, and that's what we'll try to teach as well.
That's awesome. And as you talk about legacy, passing something on to the next generation, and I'm just thinking out loud here about breaking generational poverty by passing on that business or an inheritance to the next generation, right?
Yes.
I absolutely love it. Any other insights and on the thought of legacy as well? And I don't want to hijack. I just want to add to because something that I'm also passionate about, because you mentioned legacy. Being in business, and you were talking about learning from your clients.
Right.
Years of education is nothing compared to really watching how successful people operate. And in my own business as well, I'm noticing, I'm watching non-BIPOC individuals and wealthy people, how their minds are geared around leaving a legacy, leaving the next generation. And I thought of this individual, this couple, and they have about $6 million. They won it in a lottery, and they are not thinking they'll never be able to spend this money. But what they're thinking about, Danisha, how can you get the money not just to my children, but my grandchildren? Because their fear is that if they just leave it to their immediate children, they will run out of money. But what are the strategies to make sure that the grandchildren never they're always millionaires for the next 2 or 3 generations.
Yes.
And
So,
that's exactly what the Jewish people do, right? So
right.
if you study the Jewish system, that is what they do. So that's why their wealth just runs from generation to generation, because they build in all the structures using trust, using corporations, where the people inheriting the wealth can't even sell the assets, right? And so you have all these assets that will continue to generate income forever,
Exactly.
right? And so those are some of the things, so there are some of the things that we see and we watch and we figure out, okay, how can we as people of color start implementing some of these things, so that when our kids or when other people come behind us, they can continue to enjoy the wealth that we've created.
Exactly.
I just have a quick housekeeping from Christina. Can you take a look at your chats to see if you need to be moved manually? If you're not in Fireside Chat and want to be moved, just look at your chat and just tell Christina where you should be or where you want to be. Are there any questions? Raymond said that he loves your definition of legacy. Yeah.
Yes, Ken.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah, go ahead, Celia.
yes. So, okay. So I think we have 3 minutes left in here. So, or under 3 minutes. So yeah, I thank Raymond for that, for Ken, because he said the definition of legacy is profound, Ken. So it was directed to Ken. But just as parting shots, if we can just to sum up everything that we our main point is organize your business properly, right? And shift and put on the entrepreneurial mindset, right? Make sure your financial records are in order and think about legacy, because these are the ways. If you go back to what it was, the question is, how can we seize opportunities? How can we become economically mobile as a community? And these are real critical issues. And Ken's point about what obtains within the Jewish community, we also need to make sure that we're doing research, looking at best practices, leaning on our accountants and our professionals to guide us in particular ways. So
Absolutely.
I don't know, Ken, if you had anything further to say.
So I mean, the most important thing I'm just going to talk about is just education, right? So just opening up your mind to learning new things, and just getting into the mindset. So one of the things I teach, particularly those that are going into business for the first time, getting into the mindset that there is really no backdoor. Right? Because sometimes we get into business and as soon as we hit the first roadblock, we give up. So getting into that mindset that there is really no backdoor, that you're in this to win. And so that's one of the things we teach. And I think if we start learning, if we start educating ourselves and getting into that mindset of taking action on the things we've learned, then that's just going to be a great start in terms of how we begin to see new opportunities in front of us.
Absolutely. Awesome. Any other questions? Any other comments? I really want to thank Celia and Ken and everyone who joined our Fireside Chat. I love how it was cozy and intimate. And so, it was a pleasure to serve you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It certainly was. Thank you, Celia and Ken, and welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed your Voices in Action segment, and sorry we had some technical glitches because we just have too much volume to handle. So some people got sent to your room quite late. Sorry about that. But we're welcoming you back now to our Dialogues in Diversity session with CPA Canada, and that will be hosted by Bruce and Hugh, I believe. So I'm handing over. Bruce, are you back?
Well, Sharon, I think we should all be back from the concurrent Voices in Action session and the fireside chat. I see the chat really was on right. So Mahuli gave a shout out to the fireside chat. So yeah, we will be welcoming everyone back to the main room for our Dialogues in Diversity session with CPA Canada. And I'm excited again, because this is the second in the series of Dialogues in Diversity. And we have our representatives from CPA Canada will be speaking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and what exciting things are happening at CPA Canada. So I'm gonna turn it over to you, Sharon, to take it away for us.
Okay, thank you, Hugh. So it's my honor to welcome Tasha Batstone, Andrea Sowell, and Alicia Goodbrand from CPA Canada, and our participants for the second Dialogues in Diversity session. Thanks to Bruce Singer and Hugh Anthony for moderating this Dialogues in Diversity session on fostering equity, diversity, and inclusion with CPAs. And as a CPA myself, I'm so looking forward to this. Thank you and welcome. I'll hand over now to Bruce. Hopefully he's back in the house. Not seeing him.
I'm here.
All right,
I'm
Bruce.
here. I'm here.
I see
I'm
you're
good.
back there. So
I'm here.
yeah,
I want to
take it away.
Okay. Thank you, CPA Canada. Before we start, I want to thank some of our supporters. I want to thank All Vista, C2FO, Richardson GMP, Young Canadians in Finance, and Black business professionals for their support in promoting and helping us develop this program. So we're going to start. I'm going to introduce the three people from CPA Canada. I'm going to introduce Tasha Batstone. I'm going to, sorry, I got tongue twisted for a second here. You know what I mean?
All right.
One moment.
That's all right.
It's like you want
Andrew
some
Sewell, and Alicia Goodbrand. I got too many people in my head right now, thousands. So sorry about that. Anyways, so we're going to start, and Hugh's going to kickstart. We're going to go through this moderated session, and thank you so much. Hugh, can you please start, and then we'll take turns in asking some questions. Going through this.
Sure, Bruce. So yeah, welcome, Tasha, welcome, Alicia, welcome, Andrea, to this Dialogue in Diversity segment. So my first question I'll throw is, where is CPA Canada currently at in its diversity, equity, and inclusion journey?
Just making sure everyone can hear me.
Yeah.
Great. So first of all, thank you so much for having us today. I had the opportunity to join in a little bit earlier, so this has been a tremendous learning opportunity for me so far as we go along. So with regard to our journey here at CPA Canada, it's a relatively new journey, probably started out about 1.5 years ago. We started looking at external organizations and seeing what they were doing and some of the key benefits that were coming out of their implementation of diversity, equity, and inclusion programs and policies. And as we started realizing that, we started to think about what can we do internally, which led to the creation of our Diversity and Inclusion Council. We knew, some of the key benefits, business benefits that would come of this, but I think really what one of the drivers was looking at our employees internally, and in creating a council like this, it would sort of, translate into the business throughout employees by way of engagement and probably above all else, trust. So fast forward to where we are now, probably about 1.5 years later, and we have a council that's made up of 16 individuals that are cross-functional across the organization. And what was really great to see is when we put the call out for volunteers, the response was fantastic. So a lot of interest in moving forward on this initiative. And so it's set up in such a way that there's 16 council members, and then strong involvement from both HR and also the executive leadership. And the council determines how much support they require from the business and sort of what they need to help leverage some of these initiatives that we're moving forward. I think the key is that although there's some accountabilities within certain areas of the council and also within HR, with the executive, is that we always want to maintain that collaboration between all of the parties so that we're building this initiative and working through this journey together. And I know, Tasha, I'll pass it over to you to talk a little bit more about the executive endorsement.
Thanks, Alicia. Welcome, and thanks everybody for allowing us to talk today. I'm really looking forward to, and like Alicia said, I got to attend one of the breakout sessions and it was phenomenal. And I went to the session on leadership. So thank you to the individuals who spoke. It was really, really a massive learning for me as well. Part of our process at CPA Canada was to really look at how the executive could be engaged and really to show that tone at the top about how important diversity and inclusion is, not only to CPA Canada, but to the entire profession. And I guess there's a few things that we talked a lot about when we first discussed having senior level involvement and how senior level could support this initiative. And it really had to do with making sure that there was a commitment by the senior team to be present. This is not about just making speeches and smiles and sort of those touchy-feely points, but it's really about educating ourselves, making ourselves understand what are the real issues. And for me, that's been a real learning journey. I've attended all of the events by our Diversity and Inclusion Council, which have been phenomenal. Done an incredible amount of reading, attended a number of sessions on diversity and inclusion, similar to the one that I just attended. But we've also been talking to other business leaders. So what are the firms doing? What are our financial institutions doing? What are our provincial partners doing in the provincial CPA bodies? And really learning from their experience and sharing our own journey. So I think from a senior level perspective, it's really important that you have that champion who can, make sure that this initiative becomes focal point for every part of what's going on within the organization, making sure that there's budget for it so that it doesn't get lost, and really having that senior lens on the diversity and inclusion initiatives. As I said, diversity and inclusion has to be part of every conversation. In terms of the council itself, the mandate was really initially about building awareness, creating an environment where people could feel comfortable celebrating diversity, talking about some of the challenges with inclusion, creating sort of a respectful and transparent environment, to have those really open and frank conversations, the good, the bad, the ugly, what's working and what's not working. And really put a focus on unconscious bias and structural barriers within the organization. And that's what we spent a lot of time doing with the current Diversity and Inclusion Council, or their current mandate. But I would say as our journey is evolving and becoming a little bit more deliberate in our efforts, and we've learned more, we know that we're going to have to require on the advice of these individuals on our Diversity and Inclusion Council to really help us as we start thinking about how we need to modify our talent acquisition, how we need to think a little bit differently with respect to all of our policies and processes within the organization, making sure that we're not creating any unconscious biases. And that's going to be really, really important for us. I mean, the real commitment here is that we know that by having a diverse and inclusive workplace, we're going to have a better CPA Canada. We're going to be more innovative. We're going to be stronger in our decision making, and we're going to be able to think about things in a very different sense. And so we want, that's our commitment, but that's also how we see this evolving to have benefits for the organization and our membership at large. I'll turn it over to Andrea. Maybe she can give a little bit of a highlight on what we've accomplished in year one with the Diversity and Inclusion Council.
Thanks, Tasha, and hello, everyone. Really great to have this opportunity to share our insights with you and gain some from everyone who's been speaking so far. So far, like I said, we are relatively new. We started at the end of last year. We formulated the group, but we had a whole, we were ready to go into it for 2020, and COVID happened. So we had to put a pause on some of the initiatives that we had planned early in the year. But we were able to implement a lot of great projects and programs that have gotten a lot of great feedback from our employees. One of the initiatives that we started was a Breaking Barriers publication series that is a showcase of stories and articles and testimonials from CPA Canada employees on diversity and inclusion topics. We have provided access to a number of resources and training. Currently, we have a mandatory training for all our employees to take regarding unconscious bias and diversity and inclusion fundamentals. We also have created a dedicated Yammer channel, which allow our employees to engage on diversity and inclusion topics, as well as the initiatives that the council has put on. So we have a great exchange of information and comments from employees from across our organization. And we also had a book club, we'll call it a book club. It didn't start off as a book club, but we did implement a program where we allowed, where CPA Canada reimbursed employees who purchased books that were related to race relations. And so now we have a book club, and so we've had people have had a chance to read these books. And so now we're having book clubs so where they can share the insights and thoughts about what they've read. But our most successful events that we had so far were 2 online forum events. But first we started off with in June with a Pride event with the LGBTQ+ community. And it was a forum like this, but it was employees within the organization sharing their perspectives. And then we followed that up with a anti-Black racism forum, which I was a member of the panel, and we provided different perspectives, myself giving the perspective of a Black female, we had Black male perspective, a Black parent raising an interracial child, and a Black male in an interracial same-sex relationship. So it was great insight that the organization just completely loved to get that insight, that they wouldn't have gotten those perspectives maybe in their own circles. So to start the conversation, it was great, and we are continuing those conversations.
Great insights. Thank you so much for sharing the perspective there, Tasha, Andrea, and Alicia. The next question I just wanted to put out there for thought is, how are the employees reacting to the diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives that have been put in place today so far?
As Andrea said, there's been really great support and interest. We tend to see a lot of spikes in that interest level around the events that the Diversity Inclusion Council have been putting off. You know, the 2 events, the 2 online events that Andrea spoke about were really, really well attended. And, you know, you tend to see these spikes in the Yammer discussions and the kind of conversations that are happening right after that. We've also, you know, as Andrea said, the book club is starting to pick up speed. I just finished my book, so I'm going to go in and start commenting on our Yammer site about the book that I just read, which was phenomenal. It was called White Fragility, and if anybody has an opportunity to read it, I would strongly encourage you to do so. And then we get a lot of questions. We've been running town halls now every 2 to 3 weeks with our staff. And invariably now we're starting to get more and more questions at those town halls about what we're going to be doing around inclusion and diversity. You know, I think when you put yourself out there as an organization and say you are going to deliver on this, there's an expectation that you're going to deliver on this. And our employees are holding us to that. And not just our employees who would self-identify as being diverse, but I think all of our employees, because they do feel this is very important. And so it's been lovely to see, actually. It's been really helpful to kind of see that engagement. Andrea, Alicia, do you have anything to add?
Yes, I would say that the events that we had at the online forum events, it was not mandatory for employees to attend. It was at 1 o'clock after lunch, and you know how everybody has a lot of meetings during COVID, but in the initial event, we had over 40% attendance. And we followed that up with the anti-Black racism event that had just about 50% So it's continuing to grow. Sorry, someone is unmuted. So yeah, so we had great attendance while we were having the event. There was a lot of commentary coming through. They were asking while we were doing the presentation, when is the next one? Can we extend this session? What else are we going to do? And then a lot of people have been, who are outside the council, have been asking how they can contribute. They may not, for specifically for the Black Racism Initiative, a lot of employees who were not Black are stepping up and saying, what can I do? How can I support? We do have the training available, but if we are having events, there were a lot of people outside the council who are asking to proactively contribute or participate and help support these events. So it's great. It's been a great reaction that we've been having, and we're just trying to keep up the momentum, because now, as Tasha said, we've set the expectation and we can't take our foot off the pedal now.
Yeah, the one thing I would add to that is, it's, so far overall, it has been certainly positive feedback. And I think what's really nice to see, and I think there's a certain amount of vulnerability with it, is sometimes the questions that are asked of employees with regard to diversity, equity, and inclusion are not always easy questions. And I think it's, there's a certain understanding that we may not always have the answers, we being the organization, the executive team, the council. I think it's more around, do they have a voice and do they have a platform to ask those questions? And will we take that feedback and will we come back to them with, further information? So that's nice to see as well. And they certainly, they don't shy away from asking the questions, which is great, because that, also helps to open people's mindsets and sort of think about things from a different perspective. So that engagement has been really nice as well.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank you.
so.
Thank you.
Bruce?
Yeah.
Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. So final question, what are some of the focus areas surrounding EDI for CPA Canada in 2021 and beyond?
Yeah, so I'll jump in here first. Certainly, there's so much to be done in this area, and I think we have to, do it in such a way that we can set ourselves up for success in the rollout. So some of the areas that we're looking at, and a lot of them actually were discussed during the panel discussion as well. But we've had some great traction, and now we want to kind of get back to some of the fundamentals. So for example, we want to look at solidifying some of our policies and putting them in place and rolling them out to the business. So we're working on some of those right now. Andrea mentioned a little bit about training and development. So certainly we have some courses that are mandated to all employees right now, and they're completing those courses. We really want to have the mindset that it's not just a tick box exercise with regard to training. It's not how many training sessions are we having people take versus what are we actually going to get out of the training? Are we going to see some change in the way that people approach things and the way that they deal with their colleagues and the way that they do their work in terms of what they get out of these training sessions? So we want to make sure that we're really looking at quality content for training. One of these things that was definitely discussed during the panel was all around data and metrics. And so that's definitely a key focus area for us. We have, areas at this point where we can get some data through pulse surveys or through our annual engagement surveys, but we need to look at what type of data are we collecting? How deep do we want to get? Who's going to manage the data? So we'll certainly be looking at looking at data collection for sure as a key focus for 2021. And then lastly, and certainly another important area, is looking at the talent acquisition process and how can we start to further embed diversity, equity and inclusion practices and policies into our recruitment process and talent acquisition. And that would be both internally and externally focused. So certainly a lot of work planned for F21, and I know the council also is working on their roadmap for 2021. So Andrea, maybe I'll pass it over to you to talk about that a little bit.
Yes, so we do have a collaboration right now. We have a partnership with the Canadian Center for Diversity and Inclusion. And so we're leveraging a lot of the content that they're able to provide to our employees so that we will keep that ongoing throughout. We have webinars, in-person events, different resources that our employees will be able to tap into. So that's definitely a strong partnership there we're going to continue to leverage. And so as we said earlier that our mandate at the beginning was to create awareness of the council and our goals and CPA Canada's commitment to diversity and inclusion. So I think we've accomplished that in our first year, and now we're moving forward and transitioning to strategy that is more related to change. We have the opportunity, we've been given the green light, sorry, by the executive team to be able to be in an advisory position. And we'll be able to work with HR as they develop these policies and increase engagement and education amongst our employees. So we're really looking forward. So we're taking, we'll continue with our events and doing things on a tactical level, but we're really looking forward to where we can have more of a strategic impact in the organization.
Thanks so much, Andrea. Bruce, I really, on behalf of yourself, and I want to thank Kasia, Andrea, and Alicia. Really, we appreciate the insight, and we look forward to learning more and our shared partnership. Over to you, Bruce, to take it away.
Yeah, a couple of things. First, I want to thank our supporters again: CPA Canada, GMS Professional Accountants, Wealth Nouveau, Women Get on Board, Crow Soberman, CAMH, and the Canadian Chinese Finance Association. So we're going to have a moment where we think we might have overcome some tech difficulties. Okay, so we're going to give another kick here, and away we go. We'll be back in a moment for music, and then we'll be back at our next session. Okay, let's go.
Hi, I'm Pauline Benheim, Managing Director for C2FO Canada. We believe that low cost and convenient access to working capital is fundamental to any company's ability to thrive, and that inclusion and community are equally important to all businesses as they strive to grow and succeed. Thank you.
And I think there's one more. Are we doing one more?
So Bruce, just to let you know, one of our speakers here, so we just want to make sure we manage their time also.
Okay. So.
Hi, I'm Stuart Pasternak, CPA and CA, and the Regional Director of the CFO Leadership Council, an organization built by CFOs for CFOs. We are proud to support the New Humanity Initiative and this important event to help foster diversity and inclusion in the accounting and finance sector. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to start. Kirk, just a few seconds of music, and we'll introduce our next session. Okay, we're good. Thank you, Kirk.
Thank you so much, Kirk. So I want to take us on over to our next segment, the Fireside Chat on Indigenous Perspective. And really thank you, Bruce, for anchoring that and giving a shout out to our supporters. So we have with us for this Fireside Chat themed Enabling Prosperity Through Capital, we have Shannon Metatawabin, a Cree member from Fort Albany First Nation of the Mushpego Wook Inawuk. So I am excited because having Shannon here is that Shannon's passion is around economic development, and he thrives on projects that focus on team management, organizational efficiency, business development, and he's a graduate of Carleton University and played football for the Ravens. Go Ravens! So I want to give a shout out to that I'm really excited because I gather from Shannon that his father's an award-winning author and a recipient of 2 honorary doctorates, and wrote actually a book. And the whole excitement around having you is that you come from a banking background, and as a business developer, have assisted over what, 250 plus businesses to start. Wow. So we're excited to have you. And I'm just gonna turn over to Bruce to really introduce you in your capacity as the CEO of the National Aboriginal Capital Corporation Association. Bruce, over to you.
Yeah, so Shannon is the CEO of the National Aboriginal Capital Corporation, short NACCA for short. They're one of the largest social finance networks of Aboriginal financial institutions, AFI, in the world. The network of nearly 60 AFIs focus on providing business development lending to Indigenous communities and have thus far lent over $38 billion and are on track to do so much more at the right capital. This session is going to be extremely insightful, and we're excited to have Shannon's presence here today and participation. And Hugh, you are going to moderate this session, and thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. So Shannon, my question to you focuses on why are Indigenous peoples not participating in raising capital, creating investment, and economic enablement? Welcome.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
You can hear me? Okay. Ego dante gasha no taga hegian ne tegi utnoch. Kichimigo che pagatanigan chebeche ayamian chebeche anamutaman pamban hit on teke. So my name is Shannon Matatawaban, and I'm the CEO for NACA. And for those of you who don't know, NACA is essentially the Indigenous version of the Business Development Bank of Canada. We were created more than 35 years ago as a network, and an association was created about 23 years ago to ensure that we were advocating and obtaining the right supports for our network. We have 59 Aboriginal financial institutions from coast to coast to coast, covering all points of Canada. Our members process business loans. We could almost call them micro and small business because 85% of our businesses that we support have less than 5 people. So we're really at the beginning stages of developing the entrepreneur. And they've been doing that for 35 years. They've processed more than 48,000 loans to $3.8 billion, and it's been a process. And the social impact of assisting Indigenous people starting businesses can't be understated. 30% of individuals that obtain a business and get support from our network have improved, 30% of them have improved health indicators. 52% of them have improved mental health indicators, and 72% of them show and indicate better life satisfaction. For an Indigenous person on a First Nations, there's no better indicators than that. So starting a business has a multiplier effect that we still haven't measured, but we are getting down that path of becoming better storytellers of our data. Now, some of the questions you asked is why haven't we participated at the level? Well, the Indigenous people in Canada have faced a number of barriers. When Canada was first settled, to clear way for settlement, Indigenous people were moved away from the land. We were placed in lands that were unwanted. It was away from the market. It was generally in land that didn't have too much potential. At the same time, they created a legislation called the Indian Act that dictated the lives of Indigenous people. We became wards of the state, where the state now made decisions about our lives, about our personal lives, The Indian Act states in there that you cannot have a business. You cannot own machinery if you want to cultivate your land. It tells you what you can and cannot do. And essentially it is there to try to prepare an indigenous person to enter the mainstream so that they're not indigenous anymore. So these are the kinds of barriers that we had to face. And when you're in those reservations, you have a remoteness that you're far away from the market. The health indicators are low, so we have low infrastructure, low health, low education, because we are put away from the market and we're forgotten. And now the colonized world has created a system, a financial system that does not include us. It was created not for us. It's been created to exclude us. 95% of all leaders in the financial sector are white males. Not too many indigenous or people of color in the financial system. Same can be said about the health, the education, and the justice system. The system is not made for us. And so these are major barriers to us. I recommend a book. It's called Decolonizing Wealth. Edgar Villanueva goes into detail about how the system is not set up for us, and that we have to find ways to get ourselves immersed into the system. We have, and you've seen it recently, the systemic discrimination that still exists within the system, the government, the justice system here in Canada. Many examples of Indigenous people being incarcerated for doing very little. I want to highlight, something I found out is that Black people in America were prevented from owning homes. So this is almost aligns with the Indigenous experience of being prevented from gaining generational wealth. And when you have the opportunity for generational wealth, then you have the opportunity to help your family and your generations to come. And we've been excluded from that. So there's this generational gap where we haven't had that opportunity to help our community, help our families, to help and have available equity so people can start businesses. So there's a lot of generational gaps. The Indian Act also came with it creation of a residential school system, and I'm sure that a lot of you have heard about the residential schools. Half of the students that attended residential school died. The other half are heavily traumatized. They're still going through a process of reconciliation of obtaining compensation for those experiences. And the Indigenous community in Canada still has that generational trauma that exists, that permeates throughout the community. So when an Indigenous person is thinking about the survival on the day-to-day because they don't have a house, they don't have adequate infrastructure and clean water, it's very hard to think about the future and starting to talk about creating a business. So it's very difficult to happen. I also wanted to highlight that our AFI network that I'm talking about, that has been supporting our Aboriginal financial institutions, have suffered from 70% decline in government assistance over the past 25 years, which is a total wrong declining support when our population is growing 4 times the national average. So these are clear discrepancies in wanting to support a community that needs to create own source revenue, create sustainable future for themselves so that they can have an income and have a place in this world. And we've been prevented for so long that we need to be able to catch up. And we have right now a system within the globe of there's a lot of capital and people are looking to put that capital somewhere. And Indigenous people, there's been 275 court cases that affirm our rights and title to the land of Canada. And when you see foreign investment starting to decline because there's uncertainty in the the role of the Canadian government, of Indigenous people on providing opportunities to foreign investment, they stop coming. And you've seen that over the past 15 years. Foreign investment has declined. Resource-based extraction and resource and development in the north has declined. I think it's time to include Indigenous people to the table for thinking about being included for prosperity, so that the rest of Canada can prosper into the future. So there's a number of barriers, and I think that if we address these, then we can start to be part of the solution.
Thank you so much, Shannon, for sharing that experience. It's really important that we understand and appreciate the lens with which you bring your perspective, and most importantly, that the stories of our peoples, including Indigenous, BIPOC, individuals, are really given a platform, and how we can mobilize that. Bruce? So the exciting thing, Shannon, and we just want to quickly have you share with us, what are a few key strategies you can share to move the dial for economic mobility and greater participation?
Well, I think you've seen that recently with the Black Lives Matter movement. It's really highlighting the systemic discrimination, the racism that exists within, the North American system and globally, and that we need to really focus on providing opportunities to Black lives, to Indigenous lives, to people of color, to include them within the system that was created not for us, but we are here and we're not going anywhere. So we need to be provided with those opportunities to make sure that we are also part of the prosperity of the land. The National Aboriginal Capital Corporations is a network of 59 financial institutions. We're essentially the business bank, and we are helping Indigenous people at the community level start businesses. And if we're not provided with the right resources to ensure that we're providing every person that wants an opportunity that opportunity, then we're failing a lot of people. So we would like to see the 70% decline in support that we've experienced over the past 25 years. I'd like to see that turn around, support the network to the levels that we can enable that capital to move to the people that want to start a business. That would be the most important part for our network specifically. That will ensure that we have enough business development officers to work with every entrepreneur that wants to start a business, that we have the right financial literacy tools, we have the right learning tools for business development, the right online and networks that are connecting everybody. There can't be a system of duplication of services. We got to all align and work together. And I look forward to working with the Black community, because we have so many similarities and so many things that we can advocate for together. By returning funding levels to the Aboriginal Financial Institution Network to historical levels would be one. Access to capital has always been the most important and the biggest barrier for any community, actually. Access to capital. If you have access to capital, you can build a home, you can build a business, you can take employment and training, you can do anything with access to capital. But if you're actively prevented from having that capital, you can't do much. And you're out there trying to pound the pavement, trying to find that capital. So I think creating mechanisms to attract the capital so that you have the capital. In 2019, we had an Indigenous Growth Fund announced by the federal government in budget 2019. We need to complete that process of creating that financial tool to attract private sector investment into an Indigenous Growth Fund. We've already got 160 million that has been identified as investment into that growth fund. And it's going to be an amazing opportunity to provide entrepreneurs with access to capital. So we don't have to continue asking for this money. It's going to be starting to come because investors recognize that they want to be part of that system of creating business opportunities, of creating resource opportunities and major business. And you heard this $1 billion purchase of Clearwater Foods out in Atlantic Canada, after fishermen had been protesting Indigenous participation in something that has historically been their traditional livelihoods. It makes no sense. So it's time to include Indigenous people into the prosperity of Canada, which means that if they have access to capital or systems of capital, that they can actually do this purchasing of major companies that are within their traditional territories to take advantage of these opportunities. Indigenous people are not going anywhere. As much as everybody tried to get rid of them, we are not going anywhere. We need to be part of the system, and Canada needs to understand if they want to be prosperous, then Indigenous people need to be prosperous as well, because we have 275 court cases that say that this is still our land and we need to be part of this prosperity. So this is a big part. Another part is trauma-informed HR is a new area where you recognize that individuals, and this applies to all peoples. All peoples have a sort of a level of trauma, and it could be intergenerational, it could be passed on, it could be direct. But we need that lens to understand that we need to work with people when they're starting a job, or let's say, I'm going to say that we need more board representation, but we need a recognition that we need to work with people to develop them and put them into positions. So we need to all be aware that we need to have a lens of trauma-informed HR. So I'll put that out there for everybody that's listening. We need to include more Indigenous people on board. We make up 5% of the population, yet we probably only have about 1 or 2 Indigenous people in all of Canada on a major board of a major company. Let's improve that. Let's have some minimum targets. We're doing it for women right now, people of color, and let's have Indigenous people. Let's have boards represent the community that they serve. That's a bare minimum and a bare ask. We need to continue this. The Prime Minister announced procurement targets of 5% for Indigenous people for government opportunities. That's about $1 billion opportunity, but they failed at it for the past 30 years because government department managers that are probably a majority white males making decisions on providing an opportunity to an Indigenous person just hasn't happened. Unless you have an accountability or transparency structure that makes them want to make that decision, or they have to hit a certain target, they won't make that decision. And that's been clear as day for the past 30 years. Unless you force somebody to make a decision about including a certain people within the opportunities, then they won't make those decisions, because the system is not made for us. So we got to create these open doors. We got to open doors, allow people to come in, because as soon as people know that it's a real opportunity, then you're going to see more investment and more time dedicated to going after that opportunity. Unfortunately for Indigenous people, we were all told that the procurement opportunity was an opportunity 20 years ago, but nobody was selected. So they spent less time trying to go after that opportunity. If we're going to do it again, then we have to do it right. We got to change the internal government culture that systemically discriminates against Indigenous people. We need to change that, right? And then there's this recognition that there's 465 million Indigenous people globally. That's a huge number of people. And if we can connect those people globally in a network and start to meet and grow together, then there's going to be a big opportunity for capital. Talk about 465 million people. And they have a lot of, like in Canada, we have 275 court cases that say that we have rights and title to our natural capital. A lot of it that's already been extracted. And the reason why the Canada and the US are so rich and the colonized countries are so rich is because they already extracted our resources, made themselves rich. Now all we're asking is, let's share in this wealth. going forward. So those are a couple of the areas that I think that we can improve on.
Thank you so much, Shannon, for the very insightful perspective. And we welcome the opportunity for continued partnership in this regard and wish you and the team at NAWCA the very best, and blessings to you and the family. And we look forward to having you on again very soon. I'm going to turn over to Sharon and Jason. Thank you so much.
Incredibly insightful.
Thank you.
Incredibly real eye opener. Like amazing. Thank you.
Totally. Thank you so much. Thanks
Yeah.
you. We were going to have Tosin introduce Shannon, but because I think Shannon has a time constraint, so we're going to just go in it. I think all the bios are on the event link on the website. I'm sure people would have read them, but let me probably just, first of all, thank you, Shannon, and then welcome Shannon Peston, who is a senior advisor, business and finance, and from the Women Entrepreneurship Hub, and founder and CEO of Peston Consulting. And Shannon, I'm sorry, these dialogues are so rich. So how can we, cut them short? I know you have a time constraint, and I'm gonna just let you go right into it. I have the first question I have for you here. What are some of the specific barriers facing Indigenous women entrepreneurs as, Indigenous peoples?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to make sure that you can hear me all right. I had been set up on my phone, but I realized it's really cutting in and out. So can you hear me okay, Sharon?
Perfectly.
Well, thank you for the invitation, and also thank you to Shannon. I've had the pleasure of listening to Shannon. I think it's funny that we're both named Shannon on this call, but I've had the opportunity to listen to Shannon, and Shannon, your passion for the advancement of our Indigenous communities is to be celebrated, and I thank you for that important work. And I think Shannon covered a lot of some of the barriers that we see around women's entrepreneurship as well. And I just want to maybe circle back about talking about why this is so important. And if we go back to like the 2016 census, what we see is there's about 23,000 Indigenous women entrepreneurs across Canada. And against a national landscape where we look at women in general, we see about 1 million self-employed women across the country. But I think what is particularly interesting is that of the number of self-employed women, Indigenous women are growing at a faster rate than Indigenous men. And against the national backdrop of women generally, Indigenous women are starting companies at twice the rate of women generally. So I think we're seeing a rise in opportunity, a rise in participation. And primarily for women, Indigenous women, self-employment is seen as a way to increase financial stability and independence. It's also a way to improve the quality of life for families, as well as improving the conditions, socioeconomic conditions of their economies and their communities. And many of the barriers that Indigenous women face are also the same barriers that women entrepreneurs face generally. But when you layer on the different intersectionalities, including race, sexual orientation, disabilities, the impact of those barriers become even greater. And we see a lot of the barriers that Shannon spoke about, like we understand through NACA, through CCAB, and as well at the Women's Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub. This year, we released a report on the state of women's entrepreneurship. And we also did roundtables with 300 women entrepreneurs and ecosystem participants around the country to uncover what some of the barriers are that women are facing. Not surprising, I'll share some of that with you. I will mention that I'm a former banker that also worked to supporting and advancing Indigenous women's in entrepreneurship. But not surprising, as Shannon mentioned, access to financial capital is the biggest barrier that women are facing. And I just want to take that back a second. And I mentioned earlier that when you start adding intersectionalities, the barriers deepen. And currently we're seeing a lack of available microloans and grants. And when we look at the makeup of women's entrepreneurship generally, we see a lot more women in micro-sized businesses. And about 70% of Indigenous women are unincorporated companies. Chances are with no employees as well. And what happens is when they're unincorporated, they often don't have access to the grants and to the loan programs that are out there. And we saw that particularly true in the time of COVID. At the same time, mainstream access to financial institutions is very difficult. In a lot of the Aboriginal communities, there aren't mainstream financial industries within those boundaries. And so what happens is it's often very difficult for women to build credit. So we see women with lower credit, if any credit whatsoever. And this has damaging impacts to when they want to be able to start and grow their companies. And so the other part of it is that Indigenous women don't also have the conventional understanding of income to report to mainstream financial institutions. Shannon mentioned the Indian Act, I'm sorry, and how that really hinders business development and entrepreneurship, particularly around things where reserved land cannot be used as collaterals. And we look to mainstream organizations, collateral is a huge part of that lending process. So when you don't have that to offer in exchange, that again becomes that barrier, and access to financial capital is certainly going to influence any entrepreneur from the ability to start or grow their companies. I would also say, looking at the internal makeup of who's controlling the purse strings, and I think of the bankers, I think of underwriters, I think of credit adjudicators, we often don't see Indigenous women represented in those roles. And so it makes it more difficult to start lobbying for the kinds of businesses that women are running, the conditions that women are operating in, and helping them to move forward in entrepreneurship, which tends to be more in social entrepreneurship. And as Shannon mentioned too, the AFIs play such a critical role, but often what happens now is we see greater demand than the ability to meet the supply. And so while access to financial capital is really important, there's other barriers too around entrepreneurial capital and social capital, and those also play an important role in the life of an entrepreneur. One of the things that we heard consistently in the roundtables is that there's a lack of programming for Indigenous women entrepreneurs. There's no safe space, there's no community where they can come, bring their Indigenous culture, their Indigenous ways of knowing to a place that feels safe, where they can explore their ideas and build their businesses. In many cases, incubators and accelerators are often a very male-dominated culture, but it's also a very westernized culture and westernized lens. And even programs that are designed with gender in mind continue to exclude Indigenous women. So education and training, they're key to building entrepreneurial competency, and that confidence also comes. When you have competence, it drives confidence. And we do see a gap within women entrepreneurs who don't have the competence. So we see the imposter syndrome showing up more, and also the belief that women are continuing to set their sights lower than what they could be. And when you don't have access to the social networks, you often don't have access to new markets. You won't always have the business community around you to lean on. And that is a huge part for women entrepreneurs. They're younger businesses. They don't have the same access to role models or mentors or business connections. And what also is very interesting too with Indigenous women is the term entrepreneur itself poses its own challenges. And what I find interesting is that when you take a Google, if you Google what entrepreneurship looks like, you tend to see a white, successful male. It also feels very individualistic versus collective. And there are some conflicting priorities of values when it comes to how we define entrepreneurship. Women often will see themselves more as creators, collaborators, and community builders than associating with language such as entrepreneurs. So those are some of the primary barriers. And I guess as an Indigenous woman myself, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the impact that colonialism has had, on Indigenous women, and how that has impacted our economic mobility. And there's also the realities that Indigenous women continue to face stereotypes, discrimination, and racism. And these forces continue to separate Indigenous women from the rest of society, and also prevent Indigenous women from reaching their full human and economic potential. So I think the takeaway, as I listen to some of the conversations today, we have this commitment to diversity, inclusion, equity, and it's really thinking about, as finance professionals, as accounting professionals, how do we build for the intersectional lens? How do we consider the unique needs of Indigenous women entrepreneurs, much like we would see for Black women? How do we create those communities, the places where they can come to learn, to network, and to grow as entrepreneurs?
Wow, Shannon, man, that has been, you've given us so much to ponder on. Thank you for sharing, all those perspectives, and thanks for the work that you do in continuing to enable Indigenous women entrepreneurs to move ahead. You had mentioned about COVID. How has COVID-19 impacted Indigenous women entrepreneurs, and as you've seen it? What would you say?
Yeah, great question. And COVID-19 has had a major impact on women's economic participation, both in the workplace and as entrepreneurs. But it's also exposed deep vulnerabilities in our political economic systems, as well as our social systems. And what we saw in our State of Women's Entrepreneurship report done through the Women's Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub was that COVID-19 did have a disproportionate impact on women entrepreneurs. But the impact was even greater when you hit on, again, those intersectionalities. And part of the reason that it had a greater impact on women is because their companies tend to be smaller, they're already less capitalized, They're younger with less experienced management teams, likely to be unincorporated, again, which has an impact on their ability to apply for some of the grants and loan programs that came out. And they're heavily concentrated too in the services sector, which was the first to be, which was the most major impacted in terms of the shutdowns and the lockdowns. On top of it all, women are also shouldering childcare at higher than ever levels as a result of school closures and elder care. And in fact, women's participation in the workforce has had a massive decline, and a decline that we haven't seen in 3 decades. When we take a look at how it has impacted Indigenous women, COVID again has only strengthened those barriers that exist. A recent CCAB survey showed that 91% of Indigenous entrepreneurs say their businesses have been negatively impacted by COVID. When we take a gender lens to that, we see that 61% of Indigenous women entrepreneurs would say that their businesses have been very negatively impacted versus 53% of Indigenous male companies. And so again, when we look at smaller revenues that are being earned by Indigenous women, when we take a look at how young their companies are, in fact, the average age of women entrepreneurs, Indigenous women entrepreneurs, are 26 to 40. That represents 30% of the market. So we've got some very young, keen women who are coming up. But again, the fact that they're incorporated, that they're more likely to be in service industries, that we have this dual role of taking care of the family unit as well as trying to look after ourselves economically, that our networks are smaller, and also that geography plays a role in this too, because a lot of Indigenous women entrepreneurs, because of being in rural or remote communities, didn't always have the same access to the same social networks that were jumping up at a time of COVID. So certainly as Canada moves forward in its recovery efforts, there's absolutely no question that tracking inequality is going to be absolutely critical.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much, Shannon. And I know, please ask your next session to forgive us. Thank you. We really appreciate all this feedback from yourself and Shannon. These voices, it's so important, and they're not being heard, so we're happy we were able to provide this platform today to bring awareness to a lot of these issues.
And thank you for bringing this conversation to the table.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll hand over back now to Bruce and Hugh to wrap. Thank you, guys.
We're going to just a few moments. We're closing off, but before we get to the after party, we call it. Okay. Just a few moments. Me and Hugh, first, I want to thank, we're both going to thank, but I want to thank also, again, our supporters, tremendous supporters, Toronto Sign Language Interpreter Service. They were at the beginning as well. They had one of their president was on doing this today, which is wonderful. Beautiful graphics, again, CPA Canada, EY, HCCA, the list goes on and on. It's really tremendous, tremendous effort. And Hugh, he's going to talk about the most important thing is the team that put this together. And Hugh, you want to take it away?
Oh, sure, Bruce. Thank you so much. This event could not have happened. And I always say, when you made mention of beautiful graphics, we have Christine who's really creating magic in the background there with Jeremy, singer, of course. So we want to thank both Christine and Jeremy working in the background, but a big shout out to our team members, Denisha Allen, who anchored the moderation for the fireside chat with Celia and Ken. Hey, Denisha. And Tosin, where's Tosin? Tosin is there too. I want to give a big shout out to Tosin Alobenjo for really helping us to pull things together. And of course, Bruce, having amazing women on our team makes a difference. When we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, we really have to put that out there, and want to thank Sharon Barnes-Simmons too for the work and really the dedication, the commitment, and the enthusiasm they bring. And Bruce, thank you to you and the team at Canada CFOs Inc. really for the amazing work. And a big shout out to our partner at the SCOFP, the Canadian Association of Urban Financial Professionals. But really, we couldn't have done this. And a big shout out to our DJ in house. I have to make that plug. The official DJ for the Toronto Raptors, the 2019 NBA champions. So we're gonna have to take us into some good music, but most crucial, Bruce, is when we say thanks, we also need to thank our participants.
Correct.
Thank them for their questions.
And
Thank them for the very enthusiastic participation in the chat. And most importantly, we look forward to having you again with us for our next event. And, keep your ears locked. We will be sharing that. And most importantly, our speakers and our thought leaders, very insightful perspectives that have been shared. To when we look at the dialogues in diversity, when we look at our fireside chats, the perspective we get, the latter ones, it's really amazing. And I really want to give a shout out to our thought leaders, speakers, and our moderators for really anchoring this amazing event. And Bruce, thank you for being a superb co-host.
Thank you. And I just want to add one thing I'd like to say in terms of my firm and our firm.
Guy, before the Zoom goes away.
Oh, Zoom? Okay. Just one quick thing. I want to talk about Christina, and she has stepped up in spite of all the health issue going on today. She has put this together, and we cannot thank her enough. And a very serious accident, and God bless her. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So,
I just, if I can add my bit to that, to Bruce. This couldn't have happened without Christine, and Bruce, it couldn't have happened without you. You two are like dynamos. It was.
But I just
Thank
want to
you,
thank Christina that God bless her, and she
yeah.
and to put this together in last week is just beyond the call of duty. Anyways, we're going to close it off, close it away. And if you want to stay on, welcome to stay on for a few minutes.
For the music.
For the music. And we did pretty good. And just one other quick thing. We try to keep this event 2 hours.
But these conversations,
it just doesn't seem to go that way. Well, we try, you know what I mean? Anyways, Kirk, take it away.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Take it away, Kirk, our official DJ in the house.
Thank you guys for letting me be a part of this. This has been amazing. I enjoyed all the conversation, all of the insight, and now let's just have some more good vibes and take us into the rest of our day. I know you love disco, so I got this in here for you.
Listening to before you got there. This is the DJ from the Raptors. I was listening to a conference and they had the DJ from the Raptors do these. Well, I'm speaking in this conference, I should be fair. So my session's finished, but between sessions, they'd have the DJ Raptor come on and play music. So they're ending with half an hour of the Toronto Raptors DJ. And I'm like, oh, well, I don't think I need to listen to him.
Hey, Philip, we hear your conversation.
He's talking.
Can I just ask you quickly too, if you see the poll appearing on your screen, the exit poll, that would be good if you could fill it out for us, please. Thank you. Just before you go, 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Don't forget your CP credits. While he's doing the music, if anybody has some topics they'd like us to produce, we have some great events. I don't think I we have some great topics in 2021.
Great music.
so close to you right now. It's a force field. I wear my heart up on my sleeve like a big deal. Your love pours down on me, surround me like a waterfall. And there's no stopping us right now. I feel so close to you right now.
She said she too young, don't want no man. So she gon' call her friends, now that's a plan. I just ordered sushi from Japan. Now yo wanna kick it, Jackie Chan. Drop top, how we rolling down on call it South Beach. Yeah. Look like Kelly rolling, this might be my destiny. She want me to, I guess then it's on me. You know I got the sauce like a recipe. She just wanna do it for the grand. She just want this money in my hand. I'ma give it to her when she dance, dance, dance. She gon' catch a Roomba at the Calabasas. She said she too young, don't want no man. So she gon' call her friends, now that's a plan. I just ordered sushi from Japan. Now yo wanna kick it, Jackie. Kiss me till you're drunk and I'll show you all the moves like Jagger. I've got them moves like Jagger. I've got them moves like Jagger. I don't need to try to control you. Look into my eyes and I'll own you with them moves like Jagger. I've got them moves like Jagger. I've got them moves like Jagger. Take me by the tongue and I'll know you. Kiss me till you're drunk and I'll show you all the moves like Jagger. I've got them moves like Jagger. I've got them moves. You got me working day and night. Oh yeah, alright, don't stop the dancing. One more time, we're gonna celebrate. Oh yeah, alright, don't stop the dancing. One more time, we're gonna celebrate. Oh yeah, alright, don't stop the dancing. One more time, we're gonna celebrate. Oh yeah. Barbra Streisand. This is what you came for. Lightning strikes every time she moves, and everybody's watching her, but she's looking at watching her, she's looking
got some Pitbull? Love Pitbull.
Absolutely.
Horse is having a good time.
Cause tomorrow I'm also do battle, perform for a princess. But tonight, I can make you my queen and make love to you endless. It's insane the way the name growing, money keep flowing. Hustlers moving silent, so I'm tiptoeing. So keep blowing, I got it locked up like Lindsay Lohan. Put it on my life, baby. I'm gonna give you a ride, baby. Can't promise tomorrow, but I promise tonight. Excuse me, and I might drink a little more than I should tonight. And I might take you home with me if I could tonight. And baby, I'ma make you feel so good tonight. Cause we might not get tomorrow.
The light and let it shine just on the night like the 4th of July. 'Cause baby, you're a fire. Come on, show them what you want. Make them go as you shoot across the sky. Baby, you're a fire. Come on, let you go. Let's burn. Make them go. You're gonna leave them on the
Kill it.
baby, baby, took the midnight train over anywhere. Just a city boy, born and raised in South Detroit. He took the midnight train over anywhere. I see you in the smoky room, a snow white and cheap perfume. For a smile that can share the night, it goes on and on and on and on. Strangers waiting, looking down the boulevard, their shadows searching in the night. Street lights, fever, willingness to find a man silent night, somewhere. Time to work on the docks. Union men on strike, is down on his luck, it's tough, so tough. She says we gotta hold on to what we've got. It doesn't make a difference if we make it or not. We got each other, and that's a lot for us. We'll give it a shot. Oh, halfway there. Oh, feeling on a breath. Take my hand, well, baby, I swear.
Pump up the jam, pump it up while your feet are stumping. And the jam is pumping. Look ahead, the crowd is jumping. Pump it up a little more, get the party going on the dance floor. See, cause that's where the party's at, and you find out if you do that. A place to stay, get your booty on the floor tonight. Make
Nobody wants to work.
a place to
Here
stay,
we are.
get your booty on the floor tonight.
Let me take you to a place I know you wanna go. It's a good life. Yeah. I'll stand around and
Hey,
beg.
Bruce, having a good time.
No. I have got a feeling that you're gonna like it, what I'm doing to you. I'll be doing what you want me to do. To shine me like this, nothing in my good life. Good life. Good life, good life, good life, good life, good life, good life, good life.
Follow me, follow me, follow me, follow me, follow me, follow me, yeah, follow me. I'm hoping to see the day when my people can all relate. We must stop fighting to achieve the peace that was taught in our country. We shall all be free. Follow me. Why don't you follow
You guys, I got to thank you so much for having me. This has been fun. A lot of fun, a lot of fun.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kirk. Thank you so much for keeping the after party going. Well, as you know, all good things must come to an end. And yeah, Kirk is going to wrap it up until about the next couple minutes. And yeah, we'll be out of here. So on behalf of Bruce, Sharon, Christina Toast, and Denisha, And Jeremy, a big thanks to each and every one of you for coming out. And I'll say over to our DJ in the house to take us out. Take it away, Kirk.
Kirk, it's been a pleasure.
Corners and Sorry. All right.
Thank you again. Thank you.
Welcome. Ship, don't forget to close the lights and turn them off. You're hired.
We still got 74 people on. Nobody wants to go.
That's a testament that we did well.
You did very well.
Our Kirk did very well.
4 hours.
Kirk, the glue that holds us together, right?
Thank you all so much. It was good to see everybody.
Great event, very informative. Thank you.
Thanks, Marsha. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Make a change for once in my life.
I feel like this is the right way to end it.
It's gonna feel real good. Gonna make a difference. Gonna make it
Well, it's ending here.
As I turn up the collar on my favorite winter coat, this wind is blowing my mind. I see the kids in the street, but not enough to eat. Who am I to be blind, pretending not to see their need? A sonorous disregard, a broken bottle top, and a one-man show. They follow each other on the window, 'cause they got nowhere to go. Nothing like no one got to know. I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways. And no message could have been any clearer. If you wanna make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make a change. Na, na, na. I've been a victim of a selfish kind of love. It's time that I realize there's someone home. I look at the Lord. Could it be pretending that they're not alone? Oh, well, deep in the sky, somebody's broken heart and washed out dreams. They follow the pattern of the wind to sea, 'cause they got no place to be. That's why I'm starting with me. I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways. And no message could have been any clearer. If you wanna make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make a change. I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways. And no message could have been any clearer. If you wanna make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make that change. Starting with the man in the mirror. Oh yeah. I'm asking him to change his ways. Change. No message could have been any clearer. If you wanna make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make the change. You gotta get it right while you got the time. Now you close your heart, then you close your mind. That man, that's with that man in the mirror. Oh yeah, that makes that change, that make you change.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much.
Back on the music lights.
All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and that's the official sign off with our official DJ in the house, Kirk, for Corners and Sorry. Thank you so
Kirk, thank you
much.
so much.
I
You went above
just
and
hope
beyond.
everyone had a great time. Bruce,
Above
over
and
to
beyond the
you.
Call of Duty, Kirk. Above and beyond the Call of Duty. Double the time we asked you for.
This was great. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
I learned a lot too. It was great listening in.
Thank you all. Bye for now. See you on our next event.